Chapter 11. Heaven Sent Talent 5. Is this a dream? Swoosh. Rain is falling. The sky is dyed in ink, and beneath it, an old man in blues is riding a cloud-shaped magical artifact, looking down at the ruined main hall of the Palace of Heavenly Demon. Around him, dozens of Kai building practitioners in blue robes looked down upon the scene. Despite the rain, it seemed as if an invisible barrier surrounded them, repelling the raindrops. In the center of the palace, Hyung-nim, the members of the Palace of Heavenly Demons, and the elders lay covered in blood. Coughing up blood, Hyung-nim used a broken saber as a cane and barely stood up. Monster? Kai building, late stage. The old man riding the cloud-shaped artifact looked down at him and said, "You can take pride, mortal. I'm not just a simple Kai building 14-star cultivator, but a Kai building at great perfection, a higher realm of cultivation. You have fought unbelievably well against a practitioner almost reaching core formation and 49 others in the Kai building. Fought well, my ass. Handling you alone was overwhelming. The rest, even if I just executed formations. Judging by your state, you seem to have reached 5 energies converging to the origin among martial artists." "Correct." Coughing blood, Hyung-nim knelt on one knee. Hyung-nim. Trapped under the debris of the collapsed building, I could only watch him. I was pinned down by the debris, unable to move, when the building collapsed with a wave of a Kai building cultivator's hand. It's not a fatal injury. My self-diagnosis, based on my past life as a top-tier physician. With proper treatment, I could be up in 2 months. But right now, I couldn't even slightly assist Hyung-nim. Even if I weren't trapped, I'd be of no help. Biting my lip, I realized my own powerlessness. The old man in the blue robe, who declared himself a great perfection Kai building cultivator, stroked his beard and spoke to my Hyung-nim. "Although it's abominable that you killed members of my cultivator clan and deserve death, I admire your talent. I offer you the chance to become a disciple of my clan and learn cultivation methods." "Cultivation? Methods? Weren't those for your special fancy folks? Only. If a martial artist reaches 5 energies, even mortals awaken a similar spiritual quality. Your 5 energies converging to the origin probably corresponds to our 5 energies spiritual root. If you learn cultivation methods, you'll become a valuable asset to our clan." The other cultivators seemed taken aback by his offer. Grandfather, this guy is..." Before a Kai building cultivator could voice his displeasure, the old man murmured something, likely sending a telepathic message. Afterwards, the disturbed Kai building cultivators started smirking. Indeed, mortal. You have the potential to become a cultivator, so we offer you this chance. We'll even teach you our clan's highest cultivation methods. You've achieved a great feat. Becoming a cultivator will grant you incomparable power and wisdom." They were now encouraging Hyung-nim to become a cultivator. I noticed from their eyes that they were mocking and ridiculing him. Trap. It was a trap. They would accept him as a cultivator, but something was left unsaid. Coughing blood and covered in wounds, Hyung-nim stood up. "Cultivation, right? That sounds good. Indeed, fighting you helped me reach an epiphany. Thanks to you, I was able to complete the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts." He stomped the ground powerfully. "I'll show you the extreme of the marital record. With that broken saber, your comrades are all dead too. The dead comrades of the Palace of Heavenly Demons will also wish to strike you down." Hyung-nim grasped his saber stance. That look. For a moment, I saw the overlap of Hyung-nim from my past life. Suddenly, I felt like I understood the true intention behind the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts. In my past life, Hyung-nim's despairing look told me something. Whoosh, he vanished in an instant, reaching the old man's side and swung his sword. HMPH, futile? As the old man tried to cast a spell, my brother's broken saber sliced through the air next to him and cut through empty space. However, something invisible seemed to have been cut. The old man was greatly flustered and lost hold of Young-hoon, who slipped past him and escaped through the encirclement of Kai building cultivators. Indeed, this was the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts created by Young-hoon from my past life. a martial art born from despair and sorrow, created by the greatest martial artist upon encountering a cultivator and falling into despair. This martial art harbored a purpose. To my younger brother, Seo Yun Hyun, please preserve this martial art for future generations, so they may have at least a lifeline in the face of the natural disaster known as cultivators. A secret technique to create an escape in the presence of stronger, invincible cultivators. This was the original goal pursued by the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts. Catch that audacious mortal? Whoosh! The old man in blue robe rode a cloud-shaped magical artifact and chased after young Hoon, and the other Kai-building cultivators followed suit, each riding their own flying magical artifacts. A few remaining Kai-building cultivators looked down at the ruined palace of heavenly demons. Seems like there's a survivor down there. Their gaze on me was palpable, but one of the cultivators dismissively said, "Never mind. If they're not peak cultivators, let's leave the first and second-rate scraps and go after him. The rest can be handed over to the mortal authorities to issue a manhunt." Understood. The Kai-building cultivators left me behind, soaring after young Hoon. Indeed, I was of no interest to them, just first-rate scraps, worthless, inconsequential, a mere mortal. Cough, ugh, weak, useless, powerless. Gritting my teeth, I pushed the debris off me with all my might, summoning all my internal energy. Ugh, weak yet surviving due to my insignificance, happy about it. Ha! I barely crawled out of the debris and collapsed onto the rain-soaked ground. Ah! Endlessly weak, to the extent of being of no help to anyone. Despite learning various skills like disguise, medicine, stealth, and espionage to compensate for my weakness, I was helpless against real monsters. Ugh! Ah! I wailed in the rain, squelch, squelch, squelch. After some time, I regained some strength and crawled to where young Hoon had jumped away. The bodies of the elders and the peak cultivators of the Palace of Heavenly Demons were strewn about. I searched among them for any possible survivors. Sadly, all the members of the palace were dead. Damn it. Then something caught my eye, the spot where young Hoon had jumped. There was something there. This is a sword mark, but it formed a shape. It was a letter. I hastily approached the sword mark and read the letters. In 15 days, at Suak Temple. Suak Temple was a deserted temple outside Cheongbuk City. The sword mark was so crudely made that only someone who knew his handwriting could understand it. I'll wait 15 days. After using my internal energy to recover in the rain, I rescued other survivors trapped under the debris, buried the elders and members of the palace in a suitable place, and addressed the remaining force. Vice Leader, what do we do now? If Master Young Hoon, the palace leader, is defeated by the cultivators, we are marked as criminals in the martial world. If the authorities issue a manhunt for us, I sighed, facing the desperate faces clinging to me. All that were left were those who had not reached the peak stage, only up to the late stage of first rate. All the peak experts belonging to the palace had died fighting the cultivators while deploying a battle formation. In such a situation, if the superior shows panic, it leads to great chaos. Among these people, some might rise in rebellion and capture me to offer my head to the authorities. From today on. Currently, I was nominally the superior. Unlike my past life, I was a mid-tier, first-rate warrior. In a group where everyone else was only first-rate, my skills were not to be underestimated. The Palace of Heavenly Demon changes form. This wasn't just a state of confusion. With the disappearance of the extreme heavenly demon, Young Hoon, the focal point of the palace, the organization's future seemed bleak, and chaos was bound to escalate. As the last superior, I had to present at least some sort of vision. The Palace of Heavenly Demons is currently marked as a public enemy of the martial world, and the authorities have set bounties on most of us. The focal point, extreme heavenly demon Young Hoon, is also currently in an unknown state of life or death. Upon hearing this, the remaining people's eyes started to look menacing. If the authorities or martial factions start to pursue us, we'll be annihilated, but there is a way. What is it? Yongyuo is vast. Therefore, it takes time and resources for news to spread throughout Yongyuo. We will exploit this gap and seize control of the martial world's information in Yangyuo. What do you mean by that? There are those among you who have learned espionage, counter-espionage, stealth, disguise, and other miscellaneous skills from me. We'll use those skills to gather information from each faction and understand the trends of the martial world, transforming the direction of the Palace of Heavenly Demons into an organization that handles information. From now on, information in the martial world will pass through our hands and be manipulated by us. Since we deal with information, even the information that the Palace of Heavenly Demons was our predecessor can be manipulated by us. We will survive by circulating, supplying, and selling false information to the authorities and martial factions. It wasn't mere bravado. In my past life, when I was the chief strategist of the Wulin Alliance, all information and events of the martial world were in my hands. I was more than capable of handling information, and I even knew about many future events. My words seemed to have given some confidence to the remaining people as the threat in their eyes began to fade. The sooner the better. Let's establish a new organizational structure and search the palace building for land deeds and money. Before the night ends, we will be reborn. I quickly reorganized the remaining members and left Cheombyok City with others that night. 15 days passed. I headed to Suak Temple as mentioned by Young Hoon. What's this? It's empty. I waited a long time. Until dawn the next day I waited for Young Hoon. But again, the day turned to night, night turned to day, and after 3 days and nights, Young Hoon did not come. Then I rummaged through Suak Temple and finally found a trace left by Young Hoon. Phew, almost missed it. I found a sword mark on the main beam of Suak Temple. Cultivators are pursuing, so I couldn't meet you and left this letter here. I jumped up to the beam, cut it down, and dropped it. The beam had dozens of small sword marks, each forming letters. Despite the poor handwriting, I could make it out. I slowly read Young Hoon's letter. That day, I realized the true purpose of the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts. I thought it was a martial art created to kill cultivators, but I was completely wrong. It was made to escape from cultivators. That day, I deeply felt the despair of the creator of this martial art. Surely, the creator too must have met an overwhelming cultivator, despaired, and ended up creating a martial art not to confront but to escape from them. I could kill cultivators with this martial art only because their level was too low. I boasted that it was the greatest martial art, but I realized it has nothing to boast about. Hi Young Nim. This letter's tone reminded me of Young Hoon from my past life, but I will continue to run away from the cultivators with my last pride. I'll see if martial arts can really not stand against cultivators, if the martial record is really only about escaping, or if I can reach beyond that. From now on, I will keep running away from cultivators, evolving the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts to its extreme as long as I can practice martial arts. It seems I won't see you for a while. Cultivators are approaching. If I survive, I'll come to you someday. That was the last sentence of the letter. I, too, will wait for you in the shadows, Hyung Nim. I left Suak Temple and returned to Gyeonggak, the successor to the Palace of Heavenly Demons, now reorganized as an intelligence organization. Another 10 years passed. I successfully infiltrated Gyeonggak into the shadows of Yangyuo, controlling the information market throughout Yangyuo. My decades of experience handling information in the Wulin Alliance and knowledge of the future were immensely helpful. Other intelligence organizations resisted us a bit, but they eventually lost in secret battles. We were, after all, successors to the Palace of Heavenly Demons. A group formed from the remnants of a faction designated as Martial World's greatest criminals, with each remnant being a first-rate master. They were of the level of large faction elders or small faction sect leaders, and abundant in our ranks. Even if others initiated secret battles, our sheer power overwhelmed them, and we easily swept away other intelligence organizations. As for peak masters who could challenge us, they had no reason to get involved in such secret battles, preferring to establish their own factions or join large factions as honorary elders or guests. Eventually, within 5 years, Gyeonggak completely controlled Yongyuo's martial world information market, erasing any information linking us to the Palace of Heavenly Demons. In the next 5 years, I stabilized Gyeonggak and waited patiently for young Hoon. 10 years after the annihilation of the palace, Gyeonggak had firmly established itself as a leading information faction in Yongyuo. At the same time, we deceived the cultivators into believing that the remnants of the Palace of Heavenly Demons were completely eradicated, successfully separating us from the palace. As a result, we even became the privileged class in Yongyuo, supported by cultivators. In 10 years, a few of the late-stage first-rate warriors had crossed the threshold into peak masters, ensuring we were not lacking in external strength. Everything was abundant, except for one thing, my own skills. As I remember, I have about 10 years left to live. Xing, Xing. The sword strokes of the severing mountain swordsmanship sliced through the air. For 10 years, busy with work, I couldn't properly train my martial arts, so my martial arts level was just at the boundary between mid and late first rate. I'm just one step away from reaching the late first rate. But that step wouldn't cross. I must reach the late first-rate stage within the next 10 years and at least grasp the clues to the pinnacle realm. How long must I remain weak? I was nearing 70, but I still felt considerably weak. I aim for at least the 5 energies converging to the origin, but I'm still not even late first-rate. Why is my talent so meager? Pondering this while swinging the sword for a while, a familiar voice reached my ears. You still have a lot of distractions in your swordplay, Yoon Hyun. I immediately turned my head. There he was, sitting there. It's been a long time, Hyung Nim. Enough with the greetings, just wield your sword again. Following his instruction, I resumed the stance of the severing mountain swordsmanship. That sword technique fits you like a glove. Used properly, it can even lead you to the peak. Show me. I displayed the moves of the swordsmanship as he said. Watching, he pointed out corrections, and I diligently followed, improving my form. This guidance continued until nightfall, and then he disappeared like a ghost. Rubbing my eyes, I looked around, but he was nowhere to be seen. The next day, he reappeared, guiding me in martial arts, and I followed his teachings without question. 7 days and nights later, a breakthrough occurred. The sword felt fused with my being. The severing mountain swordsmanship seemed to blend into my soul, becoming a part of me. Suddenly, it felt like I could perform the technique with a branch or even bare-handed. Simultaneously, the sword energy naturally covered the sword, becoming much more stable. It seemed I could maintain the sword energy much longer than before. This is sword and body unity, the realm of sword and body unity, a symbol of the late first rate. You've crossed the barrier. Congratulations. Hyung Nim, you are truly remarkable. I genuinely admired him. A boundary I couldn't cross for years, he helped me cross in just 7 nights. But he clicked his tongue and said, I didn't give it to you. You were almost at the boundary, so I just gave you a little push on the back. Still, it wasn't easy to overcome that barrier. I've done all I can for you. Now that you've crossed the barrier, you must sort it out yourself. Of course. And reaching the pinnacle will not be easy. Beyond it lies a completely different world. You must not think in terms of ordinary martial arts regarding the pinnacle realm. I have heard that all my life. No matter how much you listen, it won't be enough. I may have crossed the pinnacle's barrier as if it was a joke, but for someone with your lack of talent, it will take thousands, tens of thousands of times more effort just to reach that barrier. I will keep that in mind. Right. Young Hoon Hyung Nim then took out a book from his robe. The title of the book was Record of Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts. I've supplemented some lacking parts of the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, developed a few techniques further, and added a few more. He said a few, but the book was significantly thicker than the one I had received in my previous life. It seemed almost 3 times thicker. But still, even after gazing at cultivators beyond ordinary martial arts, it's just a record of no significance. I never managed to surpass cultivators. I managed to somehow evade the early Kai-building cultivators, and finally succeeded in cutting down a late-stage Kai-building cultivator. But the core formation cultivators, they are like natural disasters. From the core formation onwards, they are akin to natural phenomena in human form. I managed to cut off one wrist of a core formation cultivator. But that was it. The wrist grew back as soon as the cultivator chanted a few spells, and I was on the verge of life and death several times. He looked up at the sky with a bitter expression. I couldn't hide my own bitter feelings. He rose to the top of the world faster than in my previous life. Even after mastering the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, his previous cycle's legacy, it was the same result as I had heard in my past life. Probably the creator of the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts felt the same as I did. That this is the end, that martial artists cannot go beyond this. He must have felt that. He brushed his face with a look of devastation. I was highly regarded by the core formation cultivator who subdued me. I was admitted to his cultivation clan. I was the best in the martial world, but in the clan, I would be the junior. Ha ha. Since entering the cultivation clan means cutting ties with the secular world, I came to see you one last time. Then, if that's the end, why did you give this to me? I looked at the record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts with a gloomy expression and asked, after all, even if you master it, you can't reach cultivators. Haha, that's true, but, he spoke with a sorrowful expression, for the future generation, to at least secure their minimum rights in front of cultivators, this martial art is left for that purpose. I don't even consider it a lifeline. It's just the minimum power for beings like us, mere mortals, to be recognized as entities by cultivators. He smiled sorrowfully and continued, there are many more cruel and brutal cultivators than you think. This martial art provides a brief moment of respite in front of such people. It's that kind of martial art. Swoosh. Suddenly, he disappeared completely from my sight, as if he had become a phantom. I was astonished. This is one of the miscellaneous techniques created while developing record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts. This record, like the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, requires the martial artist to reach the level of 3 flowers gather at the summit. Take it to a martial artist who has reached that level, and they will recognize its value. I also left another gift for you, so continue to diligently strive and reach the pinnacle. Whoosh. After leaving these words, Young Hoon Hyung Nim never appeared in front of me again. Young Hoon Hyung Nim left something else for me. On the wall of my training ground, there sword marks were engraved, forming a martial arts technique. It was the severing mountain swordsmanship, but, tailored to my level, having reached the late first rate, it was once again revised. The original swordsmanship, which consisted of 12 moves, had 12 more added, making a total of 24 forms. Fortunately, the added moves were connected to the original severing mountain swordsmanship, so it wasn't difficult to learn. Perhaps because I had reached the state of sword and body unity, the proficiency of the swordsmanship seemed to increase very quickly. Thank you, Hyung Nim. As I learned the revised swordsmanship, I quietly thanked Young Hoon Hyung Nim. My life slowly drained away. But I wielded my sword relentlessly, even with an aging body, from the late first rate, striving to break through to the pinnacle realm. I memorized the techniques of the record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts, transcribed them, and secretly distributed them to major factions around Yangnuo. I hoped that the peak masters who got the record would slightly improve their realm and gain strength to oppose cultivators. My body was gradually losing vitality. It no longer obeyed me as before, but I gritted my teeth and swung my sword. I can't be weak anymore. I mustn't be weak. Repeating life doesn't mean there's no meaning in a repeated life. That's why I lived this life to the fullest. And for the life I may live again, I mustn't feel powerless in that lifetime. I cannot be weak. Years flew by quickly. On the day I died, I was still wielding my sword. Thus, I concluded my tenacious life with swordsmanship. That was my 3rd return. Translator notes: the words transcending and exceeding in record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, and record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts are the same word in Korean, which is phonetically wall. So phonetically, the names of the records are Wal Sugung Murak and Josu Wal Murak respectively. However, to better show the difference between the two records, I used different words that have similar meanings and fit the context, transcending and exceeding. Chapter 12. Third cycle's first day. Blink, I awoke and stood up. Another regression, it seems. Maybe there won't be any more regressions, that's what I thought. Is it an endless cycle of regressions after all? But the more I regress, the more I lean towards the idea that my ability is not a single or finite regression, but an endless cycle of regressions. Damn it! I shook my head and looked around. Whoosh! Section Chief Jian's hand flew towards me. I swiftly dodged his hand and moved mine. Pap-a-pap. With a speed too fast to see, I struck Section Chief Jian's pressure points. WH what? I quickly shut his mouth as it was annoying, striking another pressure point to silence him. Due to the rapidity of my movements, not only Section Chief Jian but also the onlookers were clueless about what just happened. What's going on? Section Chief Jian. Why is he like that? I casually touched Jian Myung-hoon's shoulder and said, he seems to be paralyzed. Oh no, what a situation. We should quickly massage his body. Oh, I know a herb that's good for paralysis. I studied herbal medicine. I pulled up a sleeping herb with its roots and brought it to Jian Myung-hoon. Section Chief Jian, you are paralyzed right now. In such a situation, if you keep being paralyzed, it could be really serious. You must take this immediately. If you stay paralyzed, you might become permanently disabled. I approached Jian Myung-hoon, discreetly releasing the pressure point to enable him to move his mouth. Wait a moment. Get the dirt off it? No. This herb is most effective in this state, and if you don't take it now, the efficacy will drop. I'll shake off some dirt, but you must take it quickly. Otherwise, you could end up permanently disabled. I emphasized the risk of permanent disability while bringing the dirt-covered herb to his mouth. Jian Myung-hoon, although grimacing, eventually had to chew and swallow the herb along with the dirt. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The sound of chewing dirt was oddly satisfying. Take it as an honor, it's quite good for vitality after all. Of course, it had no effect on paralysis. It's good for vitality and has a sedative effect. Soon after, Jian Myung-hoon fell asleep. I released the pressure point that had paralyzed him. What a day. Weird things keep happening, and now Section Chief Jian is like this. His body must have been tense because of the strange occurrences. I made up some conversation, then looked around and said, it's strange, though. I know quite a bit about trees, and all the trees around here are species that are hard to find in Korea. Is that so? Anyway, where did our company car fall? We're stranded. I said the trees were not Korean, gradually intending to imprint that this world is not our world. It seems we are stranded, so I'll go see if there's a village or a road nearby. How will you do that? I shrugged and quickly climbed the tallest tree nearby. I have no internal energy, but climbing a tree is possible with physical strength and agility. Especially since I developed the ability to climb high places while learning infiltration skills in my past life. Whoosh! I quickly climbed to the top of the tree, pretended to look around a few times, then swiftly descended. How did you? What did you do before? Wow, Deputy Manager CO, that's amazing. Did you do some kind of sport? That's incredible. Director Kim Young-hoon, Chief O, Deputy Manager Kang, Deputy Manager O, and Manager Kim admired my athletic prowess in turn. Oh, I used to climb trees a lot as a kid. Still, your athletic sense seems very good. It's nothing, but I did see from up the tree, there are no villages or roads in sight. Heavens, you're not joking, are you? Yes, I don't want to spend the night outdoors either. There's really just forest around here. At my words, the others sighed in disappointment. It seems we're stranded. It's about to get dark, so let's divide into teams to look for the car and a place to stay nearby. All right, let's do that. Knowing they would insist on finding the SUV, I divided the teams and sent some to search for the car. I went with a few others to the cave I stayed in before. Let's stay in the cave. Oh my, there's a perfect cave. What a relief. I took Deputy Manager O and Manager Kim with me to build a windbreak to block the entrance of the cave. Then, I started a bonfire and roasted fruits and mushrooms. As evening fell and night came, the others saw the light of our bonfire and joined us. Wow, did you three make all this? No, we didn't do anything. Deputy Manager CO did it all so swiftly. Yes, it was like we had a boy scout with us. Deputy Manager CO, I didn't know you were so capable. I chuckled and handed them the roasted fruits and mushrooms. I learned a lot of things when I was younger. Please try these. It feels like we're on a camping trip. If only we hadn't gotten stranded, we would have been camping at our intended destination. Ah, there was so much meat and food in the SUV. Such a pity. But these mushrooms are really tasty, aren't they? My roasted mushrooms were a hit, and the company employees soon fell asleep after eating them. Crackle, crackle. After laying the sleeping employees down properly, I sat in front of the bonfire and took out some yellow bamboo roots I had dug up earlier. Crunch, crunch. I had already activated my Danshin with the Chinji Heart method. I vividly remembered the Dragon Vein Kai method, which had been ingrained in my meridians for 50 years in my previous life. Woong. After eating the yellow bamboo roots, I started to circulate my internal energy. Soon, a volcanic surge of energy started bubbling in my Danshin. I managed the surging energy of the ginseng using the path of the Dragon Vein Kai method. Phew! I felt a surge of strength throughout my body. I took one of the branches I had gathered and infused it with my internal energy, beginning to carve it with my bare hands. Crack, crack. As I carved the wood with my energy-covered hand, the branch quickly transformed into a clean wooden sword. Buzz, buzz. I swung the wooden sword in the air. It wasn't perfect, but not bad for practice. Phew. In my last life, I died while swinging a sword at the peak of the first rate. I thought I would gain some special enlightenment at the moment of death. It seemed too fictional to gain enlightenment at the brink of life and death. I didn't gain any enlightenment, and my realm was still just at the high end of first rate. 100 years of wielding a sword. Yet, I still hadn't reached the pinnacle realm so far. Not just the cultivators, but even the minimum condition to become a cultivator. The 5 energies converging to the origin was far away. The record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts, which could take me to the 5 energies realm, was beyond my comprehension, as I hadn't reached the required 3 flowers gather at the summit realm. 3 flowers was still far off, and the pinnacle realm, which could bring me there, was even more distant. How much more training do I need? Every peak master I met said the same thing. From the pinnacle realm, it's a different world from the first rate. In fact, a first-rate master could never defeat a peak master in a one-on-one martial arts battle. They literally lived in different worlds. Can I enter that different world? It took me 50 years to reach the second rate from being ignorant of martial arts. Another 50 years took me from second rate to the top of first rate. The pinnacle realm, can I reach it in this lifetime? All kinds of thoughts swirled in my head. Everything I did seemed futile. I felt a profound sense of powerlessness, and when I felt powerless, I stood up. It won't disappear anyway. No matter how much I ponder, the fact that I am powerless won't change, nor will the fact that I am a talentless dullard, a waste. But if I'm going to be useless whether I worry or not, let's be a hard-working waste. Step by step, I stepped out of the cave. The night wind was cold, but the heat surged as I circulated the Dragon Vein Kai method. Buzz, buzz, I shook off my distractions and unfolded the Severing Mountain swordsmanship. The sword technique was refined by my Young Hoon Hyungnim in the previous life, adding 12 more moves to the original 12. I unfolded all the derived moves and auxiliary techniques from the 24 techniques of Severing Mountain swordsmanship. Sharp sounds of slicing air echoed in front of the cave. Swish! My wooden sword sliced through a falling leaf. Suddenly, as I watched the scene, a surge of determination rose in me, and I approached the floating leaf, swinging my sword again. Because I didn't infuse my internal energy into the sword, the leaf simply flew upward upon being struck by the wooden sword. More. I cleared my mind of distractions. Chasing the leaf, I continued to execute my swordsmanship. The 24 moves of Severing Mountain swordsmanship. 86 derivative techniques, Combination moves, variations. Numerous strokes extended from my hands. At some point I realized I was constantly swinging my sword at a single leaf, enraptured in ecstasy. Just a bit more, just a little more. It felt like my body was being absorbed into the martial art. Is this enlightenment? Buzz, buzz, seemingly within reach, yet elusive. Just like how I couldn't catch that leaf without internal energy. For how long did I swing my sword mindlessly? Suddenly I realized dawn was breaking. I had been up all night. Just a little more, just a bit more. One more step was all it took. Dawn breaks. Slash, swoosh. My plain wooden sword cleanly sliced through the hovering leaf. Not a withered leaf, but a fresh green one. I'm almost there, almost. Then, suddenly, I felt my left arm trembling. This is ignoring the trembling and continuing with the sword dance or stopping for a moment. No, it can't be. Enlightenment is just around the corner. My eyes became bloodshot, but my arm trembled too much. Damn it! Eventually, I had to put down the sword. Gasp, huff. And then I understood why my arm trembled, because I'm a regressor at this time, at this moment. Knowing what's about to happen, I had involuntarily anticipated the pain of the fox soon to bite my arm and trembled in advance. Damn it! I picked up the sword again and resumed the sword dance. However, enlightenment did not come, as if it had run away the moment I dropped the sword. Damn it! What was I afraid of? What exactly? The path to the peak was right in front of me. I bit my lip hard enough to bleed. If I see the way Tao in the morning, dying in the evening is of no concern, I felt aggrieved. A once-in-a-lifetime enlightenment, carelessly lost due to needless fear. I screamed and deeply resolved in my heart. From today onward, even if I die in the evening, I will not give up the way I could attain in the morning. Holding the sword, I made this vow. Chapter 13. Talent abandoned by the heavens won. I gave my arm to the fox that approached me that morning, cutting it off myself. It was a symbolic act of cutting off any future hesitation. After eating my arm, the fox allowed us to stay and then left. Without paying attention to the others, I went to a quiet part of the forest and continued to swing my sword, striving to regain that enlightenment. But a day passed, then two, and on the third day when the cultivators came and kidnapped my colleagues, even though I swung my sword relentlessly without eating, sleeping, or resting, the enlightenment did not return. I stopped only on the fourth day, right after Sea Dragon King Cohweol kidnapped Deputy Manager O. I prepared a feast for Manager Kim and Kim Young-hoon, who were sitting in despair, adding spices to the grilled mushrooms. The three of us ate the feast and shared our last conversation. Soon after, Manager Kim awakened her abilities, and from afar, an old man riding a giant puppet appeared. The old man, after a brief struggle with Manager Kim, pushed me and Kim Young-hoon into a spatial rift, and we were thrown away. I closed my eyes for the last time, seeing Manager Kim reaching out to us. When I opened my eyes, I found myself on a tree. I used my agility to descend and found that Kim Young-hoon was also tangled in another tree. After helping him down, I surveyed the area. This is the southwestern part of Yongyuo. In my past life, wandering through the country, managing the palace of heavenly demons and Gyeonggak, I gained confidence in roughly determining my location anywhere within Yongyuo. After about 100 years of wandering around Yongyuo. Of course, I didn't know every nook and cranny of the country, but I could generally figure out where I was. Wake up, director. I woke up Kim Young-hoon and explained the situation to him. He seemed panicked but accepted it reasonably after all that had happened. Together, we headed to the nearest city, while I taught him letters and the language along the way. After a few days, we reached the nearest city, Hobok City. We sold medicinal herbs and bought a manor. I taught him literacy, language, and the severing vein saber technique, a saber technique he created in his past life by modifying my severing mountain swordsmanship. After following my teachings, he became a peak master in just 3 months. It feels a bit empty. Some spend their entire lives barely reaching the top of first rate, while others reach the peak in just 3 months. And to think he's achieved 3 flowers gather at the summit. I watched him eating a yellow bamboo root and the floating 3 flowers above his head. Sigh. After he finished his cultivation, he stood up with a relaxed expression. "Ha ha, I think I could even beat you now, Deputy Manager CO." I watched him, energetic, and felt bittersweet inside. He was the young Hoon Hyung Nim I knew from my past life. Now, mentally, he was much younger than me. If we go by the time we lived, I'm old enough to be Director Kim Young-hoon's great-grandfather. Watching his excitement, I thought about not accompanying him in this life. "Director, I have something to tell you." "Something?" "Oh, sure, don't worry. I'll teach you this martial art well. Starting today, I will go my separate ways from you, Director." "What?" He looked at me, bewildered. "Why, Deputy Manager CO, no, CO Yoon Hyun. Exactly as I said, I plan to travel separately from you, Director." "Why?" "Because—" Memories of young Hoon Hyung Nim from my past lives flashed through my mind. The first life, where he rose to prominence as the leader of the Wulin Alliance but eventually learned about the world of cultivators, fought them, despaired, and collapsed. The second life, where he established the world's best faction, rebelled against the cultivators, massacred them, but eventually gave up the path of martial arts and chose to become a cultivator himself. Probably, it would be the same in this life. This life, too, he would rise to prominence, learn martial arts, fight cultivators, despair in front of them, and choose to become a cultivator. I no longer wanted to see him despair. I am, but I couldn't say that. I want to travel the world and elevate my realm. But I can teach you that, too. I want to do it alone. No, you can't. How can I live without you? You'll be fine, Director. I've taught you writing, language, and martial arts. You've become a peak master on your own. You don't have to worry anymore. But, he looked dejected. Am I going to be separated from my fellow countrymen again? It seemed the shock of being transported to another world and losing all his colleagues in a short time had not yet fully subsided. Then let's meet once every 2 years at this house. How about that? After persuading the gloomy Kim Young-hoon, I parted ways with him and left the city. Staying by his side, guided by the world's greatest martial expert, I could reach the pinnacle realm faster. However, I no longer wanted to see him despair. After leaving the city, I looked around the landscape. First, I should go to Seokyeong City. I thought of visiting the 4 stars 3 demons of the capital of Yongnuo. With many excellent peel cultivators in Seokyeong City's 7 sects, I thought I might receive their teachings. I'll try some martial arts duels. But of course, I had no intention of messing with big sects like the 4 stars 3 demons. It's better not to touch such places until I become a peak master, as it would bring trouble. I went to a small sect on the outskirts of Seokyeong City, Hall of 8 Respects. Hall of 8 Respects was a medium-sized sect in Seokyeong City, and its leader was a top-notch, first-rate expert. When I arrived at the Hall of 8 Respects, 2 gatekeepers blocked my way. What brings you to the Hall of 8 Respects? Dressed in fancy martial robes bought with money from selling herbs, the gatekeepers were polite to me. I returned their greeting and stated my purpose. I've come to request a martial arts duel at the Hall of 8 Respects. At my words, the gatekeeper's eyebrows twitched. Our hall isn't a place where just anyone can come. Whoosh, I swiftly unsheathed my sword and sliced through the gatekeeper's clothes without touching him. The sword energy cut through his front garment. Realizing I had used sword energy, the gatekeepers' faces turned pale. Sword energy. A first-rate master? Do I still look like just anyone to you? The 2 gatekeepers asked me to wait and went inside the Hall of 8 Respects. After a while, one of the guards, sweating profusely, returned to the gate. "Please come inside. The master awaits you." I followed the gatekeeper into the Hall of 8 Respects and towards the sparring ground inside the main building. There, a middle-aged man with a long beard was waiting with a 9-section whip in hand. Well, I wondered who the first-rate master was, but I didn't expect such a young hero. "I am CO Yoon Hyun, a humble and unknown warrior. I am honored to meet the master of the Hall of 8 Respects." "Ha, such a young hero, and yet your martial arts spirit is not ordinary." "Your martial arts spirit is also extraordinary, master. Please bestow your teachings upon this humble warrior." After brief courtesies, we began our sparring match. Clang, the master of the Hall of 8 Respects, initiated the first move. His 9-section whip struck like a serpent, movements full of discipline. It felt as if his martial arts had become one with him. I countered his attacks using the moves of the severing mountain swordsmanship. Simultaneously, the master of the Hall of 8 Respects launched a kick from behind his whip. Whoosh! I ducked his kick and attacked with a lower stance, breaking through his guard. Clang! His whip fell towards me, but I quickly stepped back and assumed a defensive stance. Your sword form and momentum are completely unified. Sword-body unity. Late first rate, you two have completely melded your martial arts into your being, Master. I am learning a lot from this. Ha! Ha! He sighed while looking at me. To reach such a stage at such a young age, you truly are a genius. Genius? I let out a bitter smile. Surely, to outsiders, I am an immense genius. Being in the late stage of first-rate mastery in my late 20s is indeed a miracle. If you consider that even first-rate mastery takes decades for ordinary people to reach, I must seem like a divine prodigy from the outside. A heaven-sent talent, but I knew the truth. I was not a genius bestowed by heaven. I was not a genius at all. Thank you for praising my inadequate talent. To me, being called a genius was not a compliment. While geniuses are rare in the world, mediocrity abounds. Being compared to a genius, despite being a mediocre who couldn't even reach the first rate in a lifetime without the advantage of regression, would be nothing short of deception. Thus, I decided to embrace the title of genius. I will now use sword energy. Go ahead, I will give it my all too. At the same time, we both lunged towards each other. Severing mountain swordsmanship. First move. Transcending peaks. I swung my sword from left to right at mid-level, creating a crescent moon-shaped sword energy that sliced towards the master of the Hall of 8 Respects. He dodged my attack by bending his waist but countered with a low stance using his whip. Severing mountain swordsmanship. Second move, entering mountain, swish. I quickly switched to a low stance, countering his whip at the same height. Our weapons clashed, sending off sparks. Boom. The master of the Hall of 8 Respects leaped into the air and struck down with his whip. Severing mountain swordsmanship. Third move, ascending vein. I raised my sword from the low position, deflecting his whip and preparing to counterattack. Fourth move, flowing ridge. I gently thrust my sword in a fluid motion. He tried to block with his whip, but my sword twisted and spiraled, piercing through his defenses. He narrowly dodged my thrust, but the spiraling sword energy grazed his garment. Seizing the opportunity, I continued with my next moves. Fifth move, bouldered cliff. Sixth move, strange stone, twirling the sword like a dance, creating an impenetrable whirl of sword strokes. I gradually increased my sword speed. Whirling, whirling, whirling. Seventh move, deep mountain. Using the rotational force, I launched an attack. The master of the Hall of 8 Respects tried to strike me down with his 9-section whip, but thanks to the strange variations developed from the sixth move, I managed to infiltrate his guard. After breaching his defense, I twisted my body from lower right to upper left and made my strike. Whoosh! The master of the Hall of 8 Respects managed to avoid my sword strike by turning a full circle, but my sword energy sliced through the front of his garment. Simultaneously, he used his momentum from the turn to lash out his 9-section whip towards me. Eighth move, secluded valley. I swung my sword again, deflecting the master's whip, effectively neutralizing the force within it. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The master stepped back and swung his whip 3 times in succession. I countered by raising my sword to the upper left. Ninth move, landscape painting. Striking down to the lower right, then again using my internal energy to strike to the upper right and again to the lower left 3 times in a row. A total of 6 strikes successfully parried his whip. I raised my sword in a high stance, pulling up my internal energy. 10th move, Dragon Vein. The internal energy from the Dragon Vein Kai method surged explosively. An enormous force filled my sword, slashing towards the master with a fierce momentum. Ugh! Boom! The master countered with his whip, and our weapons collided, creating a sound like an exploding cannon. Ugh. The master grimaced from the shock transmitted through his fingertips and spun around, lashing his whip towards me. 4 times. His whip attack came at me 4 times. 11th move, cliff edge. Crack. I applied the technique of 1,000-pound weight to my sword filled with internal energy. The sword became incredibly heavy. Simultaneously, the sword energy embedded in the sword pierced through the sparring ground floor. I slashed upwards through the ground, striking the master. Arg! Swoosh! Even though my sword was stuck in the ground, it moved swiftly. As soon as it was freed, the speed was incomparably faster than before. The master, taken aback by the sudden increase in speed, was sliced by my sword across his garment again. It's time to finish this. 12th move, 7 lights emerging peak. As the sun rises behind the mountains, illuminating the world with its light, 7 streams of sword energy flowed beyond the 11th move. Clang! Finally, the master's whip was cut by my sword energy and fell outside the sparring ground. Ah, I am defeated. It was a good opportunity. I respectfully bowed to him and then left the Hall of 8 Respects. The Hall of 8 Respects, even in my past life, was known for its upright practices and not resorting to underhanded tactics. My plan was to challenge honorable factions like the Hall of 8 Respects in future sparrings, gaining some renown before facing the more dubious factions. Continuing these duels, I was determined to reach the pinnacle realm in this lifetime. In this life, I will make it happen for sure. Chapter 14. Talent abandoned by the heavens 2. I toured 4 more mid-sized factions in Seokyeong City. Among them, I lost the sparring matches at Yunryubo and Hweongmun, but won at Gijubang and Yugwalbo. Having gained some modest fame, I then visited mid-sized factions classified as part of the unorthodox sects, including the Hoying faction. Recently, I heard about a young elite swordsman challenging others to duels throughout Seokyeong City. It turns out to be you. The Hoying faction, known as an unorthodox sect in Seokyeong City, greeted me with a hearty laugh as soon as I arrived. The faction leader of Hoying, an old man with a long beard and wearing a gray robe, seemed like a hermit due to his unique aura. The elders of Hoying also carried a cultivator-like air. Unfortunately, I've injured my right arm in the past few days, so I will not be able to spar. Instead, the elders of our faction will take on this challenge. Following the faction leader's words, a robust-looking middle-aged man with a pleasant smile stood up. I am Teek Gyeokyop, the first elder of the faction, and I will be your opponent. I, too, request a good match. Shortly after, we stood on the sparring stage and assumed our starting stances. Let the duel boom. Begin. Before the overseeing faction leader could even announce the start, Teek Gyeokyop charged at me with his saber, initiating the attack. So this is the nature of the unorthodox sects. Unperturbed, I infused my sword with energy and countered his attack. Severing mountain swordsmanship, second move, entering mountain swoosh. I ducked under his charging saber in a mid-stance and then, with a low stance, aimed a slash at his lower body. Whack! However, Gyeokyop nimbly leapt into the air, evading my sword and plunged down with his saber. Facing it head-on is dangerous, but retreating would only put me under constant pressure. Severing mountain swordsmanship, 8th move, secluded valley. Whoosh! Clang! I countered his saber with my sword, diverting the direction of his forceful strike. The saber, narrowly missing me, made a thunderous noise as it shattered the ground of the sparring stage. I seized the brief moment right after Gyeokyop's strike to launch a counterattack. Severing mountain swordsmanship, 5th move, bouldered cliff. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I twirled on the spot, like performing a sword dance, creating an impenetrable defense with my sword movements. Gyeokyop took a step back to avoid getting entangled, and I didn't miss the chance to thrust forward again. Severing mountain swordsmanship, 4th move, flowing ridge letter F9 CA, boom. The undulating sword movements, like the ridges of a mountain, surged towards Gyeokyop. Gyeokyop swung his saber to fend off my attack, but the sword energy writhed and snaked its way into his guard. Now to finish this off. FFFT. At that moment, something tiny and sharp shot precisely towards my eye. I was startled and dodged, retracting my sword. A needle? It was a tiny needle. Giacchiope had fired it from his mouth, a hidden needle mechanism at his disposal. This too is part of my martial arts, so I hope you won't take offense. Giacchiope, with his amiable smile, came at me again with his saber. I felt refreshed. So the unorthodox sects use many unusual tactics. Clearly, based on pure martial arts, Giacchiope was several levels below the master of the Hall of 8 Respects. Had I pressed on with my sword a bit more, I could have disarmed him completely. But with such unexpected techniques like the hidden needle, his actual combat ability might be higher than that of a righteous martial artist. Such experiences, I couldn't have gained them by the side of young Hoon Hyung Nim. He was the best in the world, a noble and upright hero. Though he was called the extreme demon in my past life, it was because he defied cultivators, not because he was sinister. Thus, sparring with him always involved pure martial artistry, lacking in dealing regarding such unpredictable situations. Moving forward, my experience would grow through countless duels with unorthodox sects. While I wasn't without real combat experience in my past life, it was mostly large-scale battles, confrontations with cultivators, or following young Hoon Hyung Nim in raiding government offices. I hadn't had much experience in such direct confrontations with unorthodox sects, especially not with an elite from the unorthodox sects like this. Clang, 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 Giacchiope's saber slashed at me 3 times in quick succession. At the same time, PFFT, PFFT, PFFT. He continuously shot those barely visible thin needles at me, which was quite distracting. All right, let's end this. I decided to play my trump card. In dealing with such troublesome types, it's best to crush them in one go. Severing Mountain Swordsmanship, 9th move, Landscape Painting. Severing Mountain Swordsmanship, 6th move, Strange Stone. Combining 6 diagonal slashes with variations, I accelerated the sword movements. Flash, 6 slashing attacks countered both the incoming needles and the saber, finding an opening amid the intermingled variations. Severing Mountain Swordsmanship, 7th move, Deep Mountain. I charged into the opening and twisted from lower right to upper left, slashing upwards at him. Swoosh! I only sliced his garment as it was a sparring match, and thus emerged as the winner of the duel. Duel, challenger Seo Yoon Hyun wins. A good duel indeed. Ha ha! I learned much from it. I respectfully bowed to Giacchiope and was about to leave the sparring stage when something happened. The faction leader of Hoying, stroking his beard, loudly announced. Then let's proceed with a consecutive duel, letter F99A right away. What? Surprised, I questioned him. What do you mean by a consecutive duel? I wasn't informed of this beforehand. Did I not mention it? I thought I clearly suggested a series of 3 consecutive duels and you agreed, didn't you? Everyone, you heard me say that, right? Yes, the leader is right. I heard it clearly too. The elders of Hoying unanimously nodded and I couldn't hide my frustration. These people. Is this what being part of the unorthodox sects means? Did they never intend to let me win and leave? Do you not suppose if I win and leave, I plan to spread rumors about Hoying's dishonor? Don't worry, young one. The faction leader smiled benignly. You'll be slightly wounded in our faction's duel, develop gangrene from the wound, and eventually die. We'll take good care of you, but despite our best efforts, you'll unfortunately pass away. You're all mad. Their way of thinking was entirely different. Did you have no intention of letting me leave if I won? Did our Hoying faction ever appear to be a righteous sect to you? We are an illegal organization that has not been officially recognized by the authorities. Coming to an illegal organization and requesting a duel is akin to storming into a bandit's lair. Well, I just laughed wryly. I knew that. Though the martial world is said to be divided between the righteous and the unorthodox factions, it was actually overwhelmingly dominated by the righteous faction. Fundamentally, the term righteous faction refers to martial sects that have mastered the orthodox martial arts. However, in Yangnuo, the righteous faction specifically means martial arts schools that have received official authorization from the government authorities. On the other hand, The unorthodox faction signifies groups of warriors who band together to engage in illegal activities. As such, the unorthodox faction could never operate openly, unlike the righteous faction, which always stood in the light. Most unorthodox organizations were not officially recognized or authorized by the government authorities. Obviously, by conventional standards, my act of requesting a duel with an illegal organization was insane. It was no different from storming into a bandit hideout to challenge them to a duel. Of course, the martial sects within the city, unlike bandit hideouts, did have some similarities with regular righteous sects, but essentially they were no different, making my action a bizarre act. However, not all unorthodox factions are crazy illegal organizations. From what I know, some still have a sense of pride as martial artists. It seems Ho Ying is not one of them. My intrusion into the unorthodox faction to request a duel was not without thought. Based on information I gathered from my previous life, I sought out unorthodox organizations that maintained the pride of martial sects, and Ho Ying was one of them. Twitch at my words, the eyebrows of Ho Ying's leader twitched. Pride doesn't put food on the table. Not doing despicable acts doesn't make a sect prosperous. What I think doesn't matter to you. But those who lack even the minimum pride will remain in the same place all their lives. Of course, I could say this because I knew that Ho Ying would transform into a righteous sect in a few years. Still, it changes nothing. As the dominant force in this area, we have a duty to take care of a fool who dared to request a duel with us. Click, 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 click. Excluding the first elder, 10 elders of Ho Ying surrounded me. Let's start the second continuous battle. You talk well. 10 against 1 in a duel. The thought process of these unorthodox people were ridiculous, but, after all, I came here for this. I smirked and extended my sword towards the 10 elders surrounding me. Come at me. I will accept it. Thus, the duel began. In Siakyung City, a young martial artist began to make a name for himself. He went to the unorthodox faction Ho Ying to request a duel and became the subject of ridicule. Requesting a duel with an illegal organization. It was no different from challenging a bandit hideout. Everyone expected the young martial artist to be found dead the next day. A day passed, and people speculated that the martial artist had been killed. 2 days passed, and rumors spread that Ho Ying had killed the martial artist and buried his body beneath their sect. On the 3rd day, people mourned the death of the young martial artist. However, on the evening of the 3rd day, the martial artist emerged from Ho Ying's stronghold, covered in blood. He then went to an inn, ordered noodles and dumplings, and immediately went to another sect to request another duel. Later, it was revealed that Ho Ying had engaged in endless continuous battles with the martial artist. Dozens of Ho Ying's fighters took turns battling the martial artist, day and night, without rest. The young martial artist fought all of them, defeating every one of them over 3 days and nights. Ho Ying, true to their unorthodox nature, even had those who had been defeated and recovered rejoin the battle, but the martial artist crippled anyone who tried to challenge him again. Finally, on the 3rd day, all the unorthodox masters of Ho Ying combined forces to face the young martial artist, but he overcame them all and escaped from Ho Ying. Immediately after eating noodles, the martial artist went on to challenge another sect. The young martial artist's insane actions became the talk of Siakyung City, and he was given a fitting nickname, the infinite fighting spirit Seo Yun Hyun. That was me. Slurp. After roaming through 33 smaller sects in Siakyung City and eating noodles at an inn, I reflected on my experiences. Dueling with righteous factions doesn't exhaust me as much as those with unorthodox factions. During my last encounter at Ho Ying, I almost lost my life. Those shameless brutes. Even Teek Jiakyop, who first lost to me, returned to the duel arena after regaining his strength when I became fatigued from continuous fighting. When their despicable tactics became blatant, I started using underhanded methods too. Pretending to clean my sword, I secretly applied poison from toxic herbs onto the blade. In my past life, when I became chief strategist of the Wulin Alliance, I had studied medicine and reached the level of a top-class physician and also worked at the medical hall of Fighting Dragon's stronghold. But being a top-class physician also meant being a top-class poisoner. The line between healing and killing was indeed very thin. Fighting with poison made the battles much easier. As soon as my sword, smeared with poison, grazed any of Ho Ying's fighters, they immediately collapsed, foaming at the mouth. Eventually, Ho Ying started using poison against me too. However, I was a top-class physician. Their basic and cheap poisons couldn't affect me. The poisons used by Ho Ying could easily be neutralized by antidotes and medicinal herbs I had prepared in advance. The leader of Ho Ying, in his fury, gathered all their combatants to keep me captive for 3 days and nights. That mad old man. It felt like endless waves of underlings were being thrown at me, as if they had cloning technology. The fighters of Ho Ying, upon realizing their continuous losses, eventually resorted to openly attacking me with spears and arrows, forming battle formations. If I hadn't taken hostages, I would have really been killed. In the end, I had to rush at the leader of Ho Ying, overpower him, and take him hostage to save my life. But even that was not enough, as the elders of Ho Ying ignored their leader's plight and continued to order my death, forcing me to fight the entire sect on the last day. If I hadn't used poison, hostages, stimulants, and narcotics, I would have been dead. On the last day, I was so exhausted that I consumed stimulants like a madman. Even after escaping Ho Ying, I was still under the influence of stimulants, strong enough to request another duel at another righteous sect without any problem. Sigh. Thinking back on that day, I couldn't help but sigh. Apart from Ho Ying, other unorthodox sects were similarly ruthless. Initially, they seemed to agree to a fair duel, but as soon as I won, they forced continuous battles. If I continued to win, the surrounding disciples would draw their hidden weapons and attack me all at once. In such ways, many unorthodox underlings would drain my strength. I would then consume stimulants, spread poison, and fight back against the unorthodox attackers. When my strength was completely drained, I would flee with all my might. If I had enough strength left, I would fight against the entire unorthodox faction, defeat them, and then leave. After such a duel, I would take more stimulants and request another duel at a nearby righteous sect. There was no fear for my life in the righteous sects, so it didn't matter whether I won or lost. Afterward, whether I lost or won, I would ask to spend the night at the righteous sect. Inside their premises, I didn't have to worry about attacks from the unorthodox factions, so I could rest peacefully. In this manner, I roamed through numerous righteous and unorthodox sects in Seokyeong City, dueling like a madman. While I was called the crazy lunatic, infinite fighting spirit by the public, I didn't care. I lack talent. The path to the pinnacle I seek to reach is impossibly distant for my talent. Therefore, I must constantly fight, crossing the boundaries of life and death. That's how I must reach that realm. What must one do to overcome a wall without talent? Go mad. If one lacks talent, one must possess madness. That's the only way for a dullard to behold the same world as a genius. And so I ransacked not just Seokyeong City, but all over Yongyuo, visiting numerous righteous and unorthodox sects, dueling relentlessly. 2 years passed in this manner. It's been a while. I arrived at our first house in the mountain where I had promised to meet Kim Young-hoon. Over the past 2 years, my reputation has spread throughout Yongyuo, especially after causing a stir in various sects of Seokyeong City. Consequently, the 4 stars 3 demons of Seokyeong City even attempted to recruit me, which I neatly declined. Taking on organizational responsibilities inevitably eats into personal time, and with my limited talent, that could prevent me from overcoming the pinnacle barrier in this lifetime. During these 2 years of causing chaos, I engaged in duels with the righteous factions and accumulated real combat experience under the guise of duels with the unorthodox factions. There were even times when I narrowly escaped death after being ambushed by bounty hunters in Ainz, set upon me by the unorthodox factions. My real combat experience has grown tremendously, to the point where I can confidently claim at least a 10% chance of winning against any late first-rate expert, regardless of their strength. However, I still can't even see the wall of the pinnacle realm, let alone reach it. How much more do I need to achieve to attain this pinnacle realm? Sighing, I entered the house to keep my appointment with Kim Young-hoon. Ha ha, who do we have here if not the famous infinite fighting spirit, Seo Yoon-hyun? He greeted me in martial world jargon. I'm also honored to meet the renowned Young-hoon, I replied with a salute. Ah, this Young-hoon title never sits right with me. What's wrong with this world that there's no Kim clan? Well, if you dislike Young-hoon, you might have to be called Jeum-hoon instead, I suggested jokingly. Tusk, not to my liking, he grumbled. What's there not to like? Young-hoon, one of the three great warriors, the absolute mountain saber. Indeed, Kim Young-hoon, who had mastered the record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts, had reached the status of one of the three great warriors in just 2 years in this life. He's grown even faster than his previous self. Could this life's Kim Young-hoon defeat a cultivator? His martial arts, inheriting the enlightenment that the previous Kim Young-hoon had wrung out of his entire life, were strengthening much faster than before. Maybe. Yes, maybe he could become even stronger. Enough small talk. Let's have a duel after a long time. Ha ha, I am honored to face the blade of one of the three great warriors. We entered the indoor duel arena and began our duel. Ordinary techniques are useless against Kim Young-hoon. I began with full sincerity from the start. Severing mountain swordsmanship, first move, transcending peaks. Severing mountain swordsmanship, 12th move, 7 lights emerging from the peak. I charged at him, performing a horizontal slash, followed by 7 streaks of sword energy beyond the slash. Your skills have improved compared to 2 years ago, he noted. Whoosh. Kim Young-hoon, without even drawing his saber, casually swung the sheathed blade and dispersed all my sword energy into thin air. But still, it's clumsy. I'll have to show you something new. Severing mountain swordsmanship, 13th move, joy of mountains and peaks. I spun rapidly on the spot, slashing thrice, then raised my sword high and brought it down thrice. The cross-directional slashes rained down on Kim Young-hoon. From the 13th move of severing mountain swordsmanship, each one was a technique worthy of being called a decisive move. He can't dodge this. But Kim Young-hoon, without attempting to evade, extended his sheathed saber and with a slow, smooth motion, diagonally swept his blade twice from below to above, effortlessly neutralizing my sword energy. Then, a strike that cannot be neutralized. Severing mountain swordsmanship. 14th move, Kai Mountain. Heart heaven whoosh, my whole body's energy greatly intensified. Majestic internal energy flowed through my meridians and into my sword. Energy as vast as a mountain, and the heart as vast as heaven. The originally formless sword energy started to condense, faintly taking shape. A form of sword silk, which should only be possible at the pinnacle realm, was forcibly manifested. I executed the move, slashing diagonally upwards from right to left. Kuagwang. Formidable sword energy flew towards Kim Young-hoon. He raised his sheathed saber and precisely targeted a spot in my sword energy. In an instant, Chang! The intensified sword energy scattered in all directions, dissipating into nothingness. I stared at him in disbelief for a moment. Kai Mountain? Heart Heaven had always been my signature decisive technique, capable of splitting any opponent or technique in half with its terrifying power. I believed it would be effective even against peak-level masters. However, seeing it neutralized in an instant by his move brought a wave of frustration I couldn't help but feel. Your power is too dispersed. Concentrate your sword energy more intensely into a single intent, he advised. Thank you for the advice. Now it's my turn. Without giving me a chance to react, he assumed his stance and softly announced his technique. Severing vein saber, 4th move, mountain wind. Swoosh, it's coming. I quickly executed a technique to counter mountain wind, severing mountain swordsmanship. 15th move, layered mountain. I swung my sword. The sword energy emitted in one stroke split into 3, swinging again, the 3 split into 9, swinging yet again, the 9 split into 27. Continuing to perform the sword dance, I further split my sword energy. Soon, the space in front of me became densely filled with sword energy, like a thicket of thorns. Bang! The thrust of the mountain wind, nearly invisible, couldn't penetrate the wall of sword energy formed by layered mountains and dissipated. Ha! Ha! But after executing layered mountains, I was drenched in cold sweat, barely managing to stay upright. The mental strain was immense. Splitting sword energy requires significant concentration. Turning the energy into hundreds of pieces, forming a wall like a thicket of thorns with layered mountains, brought an exhaustion like my brain was melting. Decisive moves are not named lightly. They are the culmination of a martial art master's extreme concentration and lifelong determination. Ordinary martial arts might contain one or two such terrifying decisive moves. But severing mountain swordsmanship, improved by my previous life's Young Hoon Hyung Nim, had 12 more. Insane talent indeed. But this meant that every time I executed a move beyond the 12th of severing mountain swordsmanship, I felt overwhelming fatigue. Effective, yes, but exhausting. With this momentum, I launched into the next technique, charging at Kim Young-hoon, severing mountain swordsmanship. 16th move. Mountain Tiger, from lower left to upper right, from lower right to upper left, 4 times each. A total of 8 slashes rained down towards him. Though similar to the 9th move, landscape painting, where slashes are scattered in all directions, the move Mountain Tiger concentrated the power of slashes into one pinpoint spot. Each of the 8 slashes had to converge precisely on one point, requiring significant concentration. Your lower body is exposed. However, Kim Young-hoon targeted my legs with a lower stance, completely breaking through the Mountain Tiger. Whoom, Kug, struck by his sheathed saber, I fell to the ground. It seems I've won. Yes, congratulations. I sheathed my sword and stood up, thanking him. His critique seemed to reveal some flaws in my techniques. For a while, he pointed out my weaknesses and areas for improvement, which I took to heart. After guiding me in duels for 10 nights, he promised to meet again and left. I, too, set off for my next series of duels. And so time flowed like a river and 3 years passed. It's been 5 years since my return. Not on the day we planned to meet, but after a duel with a mid-sized sect in Cheongju City, Kim Young-hoon found me. It's been a while, infinite fighting madman Seo Yoon-hyun. Kim Young-hoon. Is that you? Haha, it might be a bit awkward. That's the way it is. Over 3 years, my nickname changed from Fighting Spirit to Fighting Madman. My real combat experience increased even more, and my reputation grew. I also increased my underhanded skills like poison and hidden weapons while dealing with the unorthodox factions. Scars from the past years dotted my body, proving my experiences. But my martial arts level remained the same, still a late first rate. The wall of the pinnacle realm was nowhere in sight. Yet, the Kim Young-hoon I met again had completely changed. His appearance was that of a man in his 20s, rejuvenational. This means he had already reached the realm of 5 energies converging to the origin, a state of youthful rejuvenation. I felt a tinge of emptiness. While some barely improved their skills after years of relentless real combat, others advanced to the next level just by activating their inherent talent. Haha, reaching the 5 energies realm rejuvenated my body. I've reached a realm completely different from the 3 flowers gather at the summit stage. That's how it turned out. What brings you here? Didn't we meet just a year ago? We were supposed to meet every 2 years, 2 years after parting, and then 2 years again. We met each time, and it had been only a year since our last meeting. Well, after reaching 5 energies, I traveled around Yangnuo, challenging various major sects to duels, and realized something. What is it? It turns out that I've reached the absolute of martial arts in Yangnuo. No one could match even a fraction of my power. So I thought. He made a subtle suggestion. Now, as the top martial artist, I plan to run a sect or organization. I'll offer you a position if you're interested. I'm fine as I am now. He seemed to be caught in the throes of the Wulin Alliance leader's syndrome. Accepting his offer would likely land me in a role like an advisor or division head. busy with organizational work. With my reputation and skills being unparalleled compared to my past lives, taking on such roles would make organization management easier. But I can't afford to have my time taken away for organizational duties. While a genius reaches 5 energies converging to the origin in 5 years, a dullard like me barely makes any progress. Every minute, every second is precious for me to reach the pinnacle realm. Therefore, I cannot allow my time to be taken away. Facing my curt refusal, Kim Young-hoon sighed and left, a bit downcast. He mentioned that it might be difficult to meet as often once he starts his organization, and added that if I joined him, he could always spar and guide me. No matter how good the conditions are, I won't join this time. I had already received countless guidance and sparring sessions from him in past lives. Now, what I need more is a wealth of real combat experience. Even Young-hoon, my Hyung-nim in a past life, advised me to undergo numerous real battles once I reached the late first rate. Joining him now would actually be a loss. I decided to observe his journey from afar in this life and continued my endless series of duels. Translator notes, what a long chapter. Chapter 15, Talent Abandoned by the Heavens 3, SSSS. I listened to the sound of the rain while taking shelter in a cave. 15 years. 15 years have passed in a blink of an eye. It's been 15 years since Kim Young-hoon established the Woolen Alliance and became its first leader. Within 3 years, he had brought all of Yangyuo's martial world under his control with the title of the strongest under heaven. The chaotic righteous sect stabilized, and numerous martial artists praised his achievements. However, for a few years after that, he seemed to seclude himself from the affairs of the Woolen Alliance, engrossed in something else. Probably the cultivators came for him. Shocked by the power of cultivators, he must have been busy dealing with them using record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts. In the 5th year of his reign as the alliance leader, he suddenly retired and disappeared, announcing his retreat to a remote mountain. I roughly understood the situation. He must have left to confront the cultivators hiding in the mountains and those scheming in the shadows of the entire martial world. In the 10th year, there was no news of Young-hoon, the first Woolen Alliance leader, anywhere. Is he dead? Or, like in my previous lives, is he still alive, relentlessly pursued by cultivators? Oddly, I thought I wouldn't be too sad even if he were dead. Why is that, after 15 years of relentless dueling? Just as scars have marked my face, scars might have also etched into my heart. Within those scars, he might have become a faint existence in my life. During these 15 years, as my body and heart changed, so did my nickname. Infinite Fighting Madman to Infinite Fighting Monster. But nothing else had changed. I was still a late first-rate martial artist, and the pinnacle realm was still out of sight. Still, how long more? I yelled at the murky sky, pouring rain, feeling inexplicable suffocation. How long must I keep swinging my sword? When will it be enough? Why is it that some gain enlightenment by swinging their sword, while others only gain scars? The sky offered no answer. For 20 years since my return, I've been fighting, killing, and training non-stop for 20 years. I've never let go of my sword, not even for a moment. But when will you acknowledge me? Why don't I get even a single moment of enlightenment? I screamed madly at the sky, but still the sky only poured rain. After a while, my own screams echoed back to me. I know, it's my fault. Yes, everything is on the first day of my return. Because I couldn't overcome the fear of facing the fox and dropped my sword. If I had continued back then, perhaps I could have reached the pinnacle realm that very day. Because I failed to grasp that enlightenment, I'm still like the sword chasing the leaves, still stuck in this realm. To learn the way in the morning and to be content with death in the evening, it's because I failed to cherish that sentiment. Crack! I clenched my teeth, drew my sword in the cave, and practiced severing mountain swordsmanship again, over and over. The sword strokes I had executed countless times flowed from my hands. The moves and secret techniques from the 1st to the 24th all came out, improving the flaws that had been shown for 15 years, striving to perfect the sword strokes. Yet, Nothing has changed. And it seems nothing will change. What more do you want from me? Ah. I couldn't bear the torment and sat down after performing the sword strokes. Now, there were no more weaknesses in my sword strokes. No more room for improvement was visible. But still, the pinnacle realm was nowhere in sight. Why must I still remain in this state? With these questions and anger, I just sat there, wailing in pain. The rain stopped. I left the cave and went to the originally planned destination, the Bangnip sect in Soyol County, completed my spar and came out. The sect leader and elders of Bangnip and I had 3 rounds of spars, and I defeated all of them within 5 moves. They were all late first-rate masters like me, but now no one of my level could block or break through my sword moves. My reputation had spread across Yangyuo's martial world over the years, and studies on my swordsmanship were conducted everywhere. As a result, countermeasures to my swordsmanship were spread far and wide. I sought out numerous martial artists who had discovered these countermeasures and dueled with them, only to develop countermeasures in response. Thus, the flaws in my swordsmanship gradually disappeared, and today, my severing mountain swordsmanship has almost reached flawlessness. Even peak masters of the major sects praised my evolved swordsmanship. But still, I could not measure up to peak masters. I have dueled with peak masters. Yet, even with my near-flawless swordsmanship, I could not defeat them. Even deploying poison and hidden weapons was in vain. Despite having developed countermeasures, the peak masters effortlessly dismantled my sword moves as soon as I executed them. Without a chance to deploy the countermeasures, they overpowered me, and I was inevitably defeated in duels against them. What exactly is the barrier that separates first-rate from peak masters? Despite numerous defeats, I still couldn't grasp what it takes to reach the pinnacle realm. I tried everything I had read about in old martial arts novels, from circulating my internal energy through every tiny blood vessel in my body to practicing external skills. I even fought non-human beasts. Yet, I remained a first-rate martial artist. I had no idea what the pinnacle realm even was. My internal energy's strength deepened, my array of tricks grew, my swordsmanship became more powerful, and my fame increased slightly. Still, I remained unchanged. Sigh. Feeling utterly despondent, I went to an inn to order some drinks. That's when it happened. A man wearing a bamboo hat joined me at my table uninvited. "You seem troubled, sir." "I'm just frustrated because I can't see a way forward." "I understand that feeling all too well, doing everything you need to, but there's no path in front of you. It feels suffocating, a massive pressure choking you. But just staying like that won't make a path appear. No matter how much you rage and scream, a non-existent path won't just emerge. So what can you do but try everything under the sun to find a different way?" I soon realized who he was. "How about it? Does this describe your current state of mind?" "Yes, great master. I'm not sure why the first leader of the Wulin Alliance would empathize with someone like me." It was Kim Young-hoon, whom I hadn't seen in 15 years. He took off his bamboo hat, showing a faint smile. His face looked somewhat haggard. "It's been a long time, Yoon-hyun." "Indeed, it has." We shared a small laugh and ordered drinks. "What have you been doing all these years?" "In this world, there are beings called cultivators, just like the monsters we saw flying in the sky when we first arrived in this world." He shared with me his experiences of fighting against cultivators. I could handle up to the Kai building stage cultivators with my martial arts. But those at the core formation were akin to disasters. I barely managed to escape from a core formation cultivator by severing his hand. I noticed something different from my past lives. He escaped from a core formation cultivator. In my past lives, he simply lost to them. But this time, the outcome was different. He had successfully escaped from a core formation cultivator. Through record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts, he surpassed his previous life's limits. And much earlier, at least 20 years sooner, my heart started to race. Maybe in this life, martial artists could indeed defeat cultivators. I encouraged him with a faint excitement. "You will surely defeat the core formation cultivators, great master?" "Haha, we shall see." He seemed a bit pessimistic, but I thought it was entirely possible from my perspective. After all, his martial talent was truly a gift from heaven, different from me. A talent given by heaven. A talent abandoned by heaven. That's the difference between him and me. I might not reach the pinnacle realm, but he will surely discover a higher realm in this life. Your words are like gold plating my face, Yunhyan. Maybe you believe this because you haven't witnessed the power of a core formation cultivator. Anyway, that's not why I'm here today. Why did you come? Well, to leave a will with you. What? His expression was serious. In the future, I will seek out core formation cultivators and challenge them. Through these challenges, I will hone my talents to the extreme and discover a way for martial artists to confront these cultivators. I will prove that the martial arts of our world can ascend even higher. Due to this, my life will become incredibly unstable. If I am still alive, I will visit you every 5 years and entrust you with the insights I gain each time I survive these challenges. Thump, he handed me a book with no title. This contains the insights I gained while escaping a battle with a core formation cultivator. I've added some content to the record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts based on these insights. Please keep this book safe and pass it on to future generations. So that someday, our descendants can stand against the cultivators who roam the skies with human bodies. Prepare the way for them. This is the will I entrust to you. I will keep it safe. Thank you. He smiled faintly, took a sip of his drink, and stood up. It seems you are also frustrated, unable to cross the barrier from late first rate to the peak. Direct training might be meaningless at this point. Let me give you a task. Try to maintain your sword energy all day. It might help. Thank you. I bowed to him with a fist and palm salute. Shortly after, Kim Young-hoon completely disappeared from my sight. Not by flying or using any extraordinary methods, but as if vanishing like a mirage. Just like the last image I saw of Young-hoon Hyungnim in my past life. He had already reached the realm I saw in my past life. Maybe, in this life, he can truly surpass the limits of martial artists. I looked up at the sky. Although it was still cloudy from the rain, the clouds had lightened, and patches of blue sky peeked through. Yes, I too shall continue to persevere. 6 months had passed since Kim Young-hoon and I parted ways again. Whoosh. Ugh. I had been attempting the task he left me with, to maintain sword energy all day, but eventually I had to release it due to the exhaustion of my concentration. How on earth can I maintain sword energy all day? It wasn't just an issue of depleting my internal energy. Sword energy had a fundamental requirement for reaching a state of unity with the sword. In other words, maintaining sword energy all day meant maintaining this unity all day. Even compared to fighting against unorthodox sect members all day long, maintaining this state is difficult. Of course, it was theoretically possible. Being one with the sword means completely internalizing the swordsmanship you are practicing. If you can embody the principles of that swordsmanship in your actions all day, then it's possible, in theory. But maintaining it while eating, relieving oneself, and even talking, that's hardly something a normal person's mental strength can handle. Even peak masters don't do this as far as I know. Honestly, maintaining unity with the sword all day is madness. Even peak masters would protest and tell you to stop immediately if they heard of such a thing. But if you don't go mad, you can't reach it, yes. It's something even peak masters don't do. They probably didn't do such things to become peak masters either. But I have to, because I lack talent. For a slow learner to catch up with a genius, I have to be more insane than the genius. Vroom. I steadied my breath and infused my sword with energy again. I have to be much crazier than a genius. I felt my brain almost burning up. I could feel my energy channels twisting. Maybe I'll die from overexertion before Kim Young-hoon, doing this insane training. But so be it. If only I can gain enlightenment in the morning. As I maintained my sword energy longer, my breath quickened, and my energy channels surged. My head started to feel empty, and my thoughts became unclear. I had been infusing sword energy since lunch, maintaining it until evening. I'd gladly die in the evening. I kept maintaining my sword energy and went to a small sect to challenge them to a duel. It's been a long time. The same for you? Another 5 years had passed. Kim Young-hoon visited me again. You look pale. Aren't you pushing yourself too hard? Your vital energy seems to be depleting. If this is what it takes to reach the pinnacle realm, indeed. Even after practicing maintaining sword energy all day for 5 years and experiencing endless duels and real battles, I was still a late first-rate martial artist. The barrier to the next realm simply did not appear. I still couldn't grasp it. Kim Young-hoon looked a bit incredulous at my words. With a small wrinkle forming on his rejuvenated, taut forehead, he asked, "You haven't stopped training, yet you haven't ascended to the next level." "Yes. Well, thanks to that, my understanding of sword energy is now far superior to that of my peers. Now, I could infuse sword energy into not just swords, but also into chopsticks, branches, paper, and cloth, using them like a sword. Against first-rate martial artists of the same realm, my combat experience and understanding of sword energy alone gave me a winning chance of 30%, regardless of their martial arts. Yet, I still couldn't last more than 3 seconds against peak masters. His gaze shifted to my hand holding the sword. How strange. You've become one with your sword more than ever before, yet you haven't reached the pinnacle realm. I thought the task I gave you would be sufficient for someone with your practical experience to reach the next stage. I smiled bitterly. Yes, this is my talent, a talent discarded by the heavens. Sigh, don't be too disheartened. With your determination, you'll surely reach the pinnacle realm someday. Honestly, I didn't expect you to actually accomplish such a crazy task. Thank you. I softly smiled, infusing my sword with energy. Now, I could maintain sword energy without a break for half a day. After that, though, my head would start to hurt, and my energy channels would surge chaotically. I could still push it for another half a day in that state. As I did so, my energy channels would begin to twist, and I'd start to bleed from my nose about once every hour. Yet, I could still endure it with my willpower. But knowing that pushing beyond that might lead to death, I didn't force myself further. I don't want to die pointlessly without even a glimmer of enlightenment. I stopped maintaining sword energy and took a rest at that point. If I can really maintain sword energy all day without strain, maybe a path will appear then. Yes, I hope you succeed. And here. After chatting, Kim Young-hoon handed me another untitled book. This contains the insights I gained while battling and escaping from a core formation cultivator. I have managed to gauge my abilities precisely and endured the cultivator's techniques as long as possible before escaping. Insights from just escaping, is this much? I was slightly surprised, looking at the thickness of the book, comparable to the complete volume of record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts. A core formation cultivator is akin to a natural disaster. These insights are natural. Wow. I was amazed as I received the insights. I'll keep it safe for future generations. Thank you, Yoon-hyun. He laughed heartily, drank his liquor, and then stood up. Then I'll go and search for core formation cultivators again. I hope we can meet again next time. And, for your next task, try to always keep in mind all of the surrounding scenery you pass by. All the surrounding scenery. Yes, in battle or martial arts spars, you always keep the surrounding terrain and features in mind to utilize them. Now, try to do that all the time, not just during battles. That's what. The task he set this time, like the previous one about maintaining sword energy, seemed insane. He was essentially asking me to become a human CCTV, keeping constant spatial awareness. I hope my head doesn't explode. I shook my head, clearing these foreboding thoughts. All right. Kim Young-hoon, who reached a realm never before attained by any martial artist, has a reason for setting such tasks. From that day forward, I began to memorize everything I saw and the location of every object and feature in my surroundings. 30 years since my return, and 5 years of constantly keeping spatial awareness. Now, I can proudly say that my understanding of sword energy is higher than anyone else's. Maintaining sword energy all the time, an insane feat, has become second nature to me, except when sleeping. Spatial awareness, though initially painful, has become a habit. At first, my head felt like it would split, but it became manageable as I adapted. I can guarantee a 40% winning rate against other first-rate martial artists of the same realm relying on my spatial awareness, combat experience, and understanding of sword energy alone. And the most encouraging thing, I successfully lasted 4 seconds against a peak master. It was an encouraging achievement. It meant that I could exchange at least one more move with peak masters. Yes, I am growing, albeit slowly. Someday I will surely reach the pinnacle realm. I met Kim Young-hoon again. Seeing Kim Young-hoon after a long time, I noticed he had acquired a scar or two on his face. Those scars? They are from battling a core formation cultivator. It was astonishing. Until now, across several lifetimes, he had never sustained scars. He had never been injured while mastering martial arts. Even when fighting against cultivators, he never bore a scar from any near-fatal wounds. Such a scarred appearance was a rare sight to see on him. This time, but contrary to the scars, his face was full of life. I managed to cut off the hands of a core formation cultivator twice in a row, and I still managed to escape. Ha! Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha, you should have seen it. The dignified cultivator enraged and losing his mind after being bested by a mere mortal. I was genuinely astonished. He was gradually surpassing the limits of martial artists. Little by little, it's being passed down. Not only I, but also a genius of the millennium benefits from my return. Bit by bit, slowly overcoming their limits and paving a path beyond. Clack! I accepted the insights he handed me. Insights gained while he repeatedly cut off the hands of a core formation cultivator. If I pass these insights on to Kim Young-hoon in the next life, maybe he'll break his limits again, given his heaven-sent martial talent. Continuously exploring new paths might someday possibly bring martial artists to dominate the world of cultivators. My primary goal has always been to reach the state of 5 energies converging to the origin, become a cultivator, elevate my realm, and return to the previous world to live a life without the ability to return. So, defeating cultivators as a martial artist wasn't my life's sole purpose, but watching his feats made me wonder. Martial arts. How far can such martial prowess, achievable by the human body and not cultivators, really go? Such questions and expectations welled up in me. I'll take care of these insights as well. I accepted his insights, and Kim Young-hoon smiled wryly as he raised his glass. But you. There was a hint of sympathy in his gaze as he looked at me. You still haven't reached the pinnacle realm. Can you tell just by looking? Yes, I can tell just by your gaze. You'll understand once you reach the peak. In fact, constantly maintaining sword energy or keeping spatial awareness active is merely an attempt to mimic the vision one gains in the pinnacle realm using your physical senses. But despite mimicking the pinnacle realm to that extent, I don't understand why your vision hasn't progressed beyond mere imitation. He sighed softly. I knew your talent was dull, but this is almost as if you're inherently unsuited for martial arts. Kim Young-hoon took another drink as he saw my downcast expression. I, too, drank silently. All right, then. I have no choice but to keep trying to make you mimic the vision of the peak. As you've been doing, you remember the space. So now remember the sounds, the temperature and touch on your skin, even the taste. Activate all your senses continuously, training them to their limits, constantly absorbing information. In that state, keep maintaining sword energy and continue to experience real battles. This is the only way for someone without talent like you to enter the realm of the peak, the vision of peak masters. Why are you telling me these things? Until now, martial artists at the pinnacle realm have never spoken about it to those below first rate. Because explaining it would be incomprehensible to them, potentially leading to delusions. There's only one case where they impart information about the pinnacle realm to first-rate masters. Is it because I can reach the pinnacle realm? At the top of first rate. For those who are looking to the realm of the pinnacle, the super first-rate martial artists. Honestly, I don't understand why you're still a late first-rate looking at your hands. Kim Young-hoon looked at my hand holding the sword. You wouldn't know, but martial artists in the pinnacle realm have a completely different vision from those below. It's the same with 3 flowers gather at the summit and 5 energies converging to the origin. And, from my perspective, at the extreme of 5 energies. Your sword and hand are half melted into each other. Usually, a first-rate martial artist reaches the peak at this point, but I don't understand why your vision hasn't opened yet. That's why I'm giving you this fragmented information. My sword and hand are half melted into each other. I looked at my hand. It just seemed to be resting on the sword scabbard. It wasn't actually so. But what he mentioned was something I had recently started to feel, as if the sword and my hand had melted into one. But can a master at the level of 5 energies read my thoughts? It's far. How far do I have to go to reach that realm? No, don't think about that. Thank you. I will continue to train tirelessly based on your valuable advice. Nod, he softly smiled and nodded, then vanished like a phantom right before my eyes. After finishing the meal I ordered at the inn, I stood up. Remember the space and next. Yes, let's remember the sounds. I began to absorb every bit of miscellaneous noise around me into my mind. It felt like my brain would explode, but this too would become familiar. As the sounds became more familiar next, I would remember information about temperature, humidity, touch. Then, information about taste, absorbing and reabsorbing countless pieces of information while continuously experiencing real battles. I will definitely reach the pinnacle realm. Translator notes, another long chapter. I like first-day chapters the best 'cause they the easiest and shortest. Chapter 16. Talent abandoned by the heavens 4. Absorbing and comprehending information about every space I traversed was not an ordinary task. It was dizzying, especially when combined with the practice of maintaining constant sword energy. Now this task included perceiving auditory information from every moment I passed through. It wasn't just about perceiving auditory information from noisy streets. Rustle, rustle, the sound of clothes brushing against each other, thud, thud, the sound of footsteps, huff, huff, huff. The sound of breathing. I had to consciously perceive all these sounds continuously, dizzying. Doing all this simultaneously, I felt not just a headache but dizziness to the point of near collapse. I wondered if I could even engage in martial duels in this state. Especially now, when there are hardly any sects left to duel with. For about 30 years, I traveled all over Yangyuo, challenging almost every small and medium sects to duels. Occasionally, I even visited major sects for duels. As a result, there was hardly a place in Yangyuo I hadn't been to. I now resorted to battling bandits and water bandits rampaging through Yangyuo, capturing them. The problem was these evil men never fought fairly, especially when chased down. The most desperate ones even resorted to throwing explosive pellets they somehow acquired. In this dizzy state, I had to fight such men. Can I even preserve my life? I sighed and firmly gripped my sword. After all, this was the path I chose. Even if I die, I will walk this path. I looked at the 6 books piled up in front of me. You survived again this time. Yes, this time as well. 15 years had passed. 45 years since my return. In the meantime, I met Kim Young-hoon 3 more times and received 3 more sets of insights, making a total of 6 volumes of insights from Kim Young-hoon. During this time, I mastered processing not only visual and auditory information, but also touch, taste, and smell continuously and adeptly. Now, when I met a martial artist of late first rate, my understanding of the 5 senses, sword energy, and immense practical experience allowed me to start with a 70% chance of winning against martial artists of the same level. Of course, this was without considering the power of my martial arts. Including that, my winning probability reached 99%. If it was a real fight allowing the use of toxins and hidden weapons, I could guarantee victory against any late first-rate martial artist. Moreover, with the ability to process information using the 5 senses and my understanding of constantly using sword energy, I could now face a peak master for about 10 to 20 exchanges. Of course, it was difficult to continue beyond that. That was the end. I still hadn't become a peak master. Still, My existence has spread among the core formation cultivators. It seems I'm wanted. 2 core formation cultivators laid a trap and waited for me. I barely escaped. Still, I managed to inflict a small wound on the cheek of one of them. You've gained even more insights. What insights? Despite all this, I still can't properly confront core formation cultivators. Assuming I don't run away, I can't even last 100 exchanges against them. It's impossible to inflict any meaningful damage. He gazed at the sky with a sense of futility and mused. Honestly, I sometimes wonder whether the extreme of 5 energies converging to the origin I've reached is the end for martial artists. Perhaps the martial artist who created record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts had similar thoughts. No matter how hard we try, it's impossible to defeat cultivators with martial arts. I quietly looked at Kim Young-hoon. Despite writing 6 books full of astonishing insights, he held a small teacup, his face etched with a hollow smile. Clearly, he possessed talent given by the heavens. And I, talent abandoned by the heavens. Clearly, he and I were in starkly opposite situations. Yet somehow I saw my reflection in Kim Young-hoon, myself, who could not grasp even a hint of the pinnacle realm despite numerous lifetimes of effort. His situation, where no possibility of defeating cultivators appeared despite repeated lifetimes. Clearly, a genius given by the heavens and a dullard abandoned by the heavens. Why, then, did we seem so similar? By the way, I still don't understand why I haven't reached the pinnacle realm. It's frustrating for me, too. Kim Young-hoon looked at me with a slightly bitter expression. Why can't you reach that realm despite mimicking the world of peak masters, including sword energy? I can't grasp what's missing. He let out a hollow laugh and stood up. Let's have a sparring session after a long time. That sounds like good news. Kim Young-hoon and I left the guest house and headed towards a nearby forest. Upon reaching a suitable clearing, I unsheathed my sword without a word. The sword energy, which I had been maintaining continuously for 7 days and nights, flickered on my sword. Your understanding of sword energy is considerable. You'd quickly reach the stage of sword silk once you attain the pinnacle realm, Kim Young-hoon observed, noticing the aura of my sword. I smiled bitterly. The hypothesis after reaching the pinnacle realm was meaningless. It was already the 45th year since my return. I only had about 5 years of life left, and the likelihood of becoming a peak master within that time was slim. A realm that I couldn't reach despite dedicating my entire life. Would any special enlightenment come within these 5 years? Then let's begin. I took up a fighting stance, my expression intense, severing mountain swordsmanship. 16th move, Mountain Tiger, swoosh. 6 sword energies from the upper left to the lower right. 6 from the upper right to the lower left. A total of 12 sword energies converged towards Kim Young-hoon's heart. Ting! Kim Young-hoon didn't even draw his saber. He simply flicked his finger, and my technique dissipated instantly. However, I didn't panic and immediately launched another move, severing mountain swordsmanship. 12th move, 9 lights emerging peak, a more evolved sword technique that sent 9 sword energies his way. You've significantly reduced your vulnerabilities. Swoosh. Kim Young-hoon quickly deployed his movement technique, dodging all my sword energies and quietly commended me. I didn't respond, but quickly took another fighting stance, severing mountain swordsmanship. 17th move, mountain and valley transformation. Boom, bang, bang. I sent sword energies in all directions, absorbing them into the earth with the principle of infiltration, and then detonating them after a delay, a decisive move of the severing mountain swordsmanship. Boom, bang. The surrounding terrain transformed under my will. Sword energies emerging from the ground surged towards Kim Young-hoon. Whoosh! But when he swiped his finger horizontally, the sword energies I launched lost their power and scattered into the air. Severing vein saber method, 8th move, mountain scream. Whoosh! He extended his finger towards me again. Boom! The saber energy emanating from his finger overturned the ground as it surged towards me, severing mountain swordsmanship. 18th move, echoing valley. Whoosh! I infused sword energy into my sword, and simultaneously I withdrew all force from it. Though it sounded absurd, Echoing Valley required just that. I filled my sword with energy while maintaining its form, removing all intent and miscellaneous forces, leaving only a hollow form of energy. Ha! With all my concentration, I maintained the emptiness in my sword and faced the incoming saber energy. GRR. Immense pressure traveled up my arm, but simultaneously, the saber energy that surged towards me was absorbed into my sword. I emptied my intent from the sword and filled it with the opponent's intent. Then, with a swift turn, I exerted all my strength to fling the energy in another direction. Boom! The mountain scream Kim Young-hoon launched destroyed several trees and shattered a huge rock. Hugh. I sweat profusely and trembling. Echoing Valley was originally a counterattack technique that absorbed the opponent's energy and intent, returning it back to them. However, I could only manage to deflect the attack, still far off. Gritting my teeth, I took up my stance again and charged. Severing Mountain Swordsmanship. 19th move. Mountain echoes, Valley responds. Whoosh! My sword vibrated, and my sword energy morphed into waves, spreading in all directions before suddenly converging towards Kim Young-hoon. An inescapable, decisive technique. But he just smiled, lifting his hand, and saber energy burst from his fingertips. Whoosh, bang, 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 spinning and dancing, he flicked his hand each time, deflecting the converging sword energies. Whoosh, thump, thump, thump. He deflected countless sword energies and then extended his finger towards me again. Severing Vein Saber Method, 9th move, Dragon's Mound. Rumble! The fearsome saber energy, twisting like a dragon, flew towards me. Can I withstand it? No, even trying to deflect it with my sword would tear me apart due to the intricate changes in his technique. I need to take a risk. I confront it head-on, severing mountain swordsmanship. 20th move, 9 mountains, 8 seas. I spun in place with my sword, once, twice, thrice, then again. With each spin, the speed and power of my sword grew exponentially. After 9 spins, the power within my sword had become terrifyingly immense. With every bit of my being, I slashed at the oncoming saber energy in all directions. Boom! A massive explosion sounded, and I witnessed my sword shatter. Flung backward by the shockwave, I crashed into a large tree, spitting blood and kneeling. My defeat was evident. Damn it! What seems to be the problem? Kim Young-hoon sighed softly. I don't know, I can't fathom why you're still in this realm. You should have become a peak master long ago. What do you mean? I asked, catching my breath. It was absurd. I had never even come close to enlightenment, let alone reach the pinnacle realm. Intriguing. Why is this happening? After pondering, Kim Young-hoon looked at me thoughtfully and suggested, perhaps you lack a catalyst. A catalyst? Yes, a catalyst, like desperation or a driving force, something that would push your talent beyond its limits with extreme concentration. What kind of catalyst are you talking about? I cut him off, yelling furiously with veins bulging in my eyes. I've wielded a sword for over 50 years. My entire life. I've longed to transcend to the next realm. You're telling me I need to be more desperate. How much more? I screamed as if in agony, disregarding the pain in my entire body. I've struggled my whole life to break free from being first-rate. What am I lacking? What more do I need to do? I've unblocked all my meridians. I even sleep with my hand on my sword, flowing sword energy. I've reached a point where I even collect and process information in my dreams. But why? Why? Why won't the heavens show me the next realm? Why? I thrashed about, screaming at the sky. I knew it was undignified for someone nearly 70, but having pursued the sword and yearned for the pinnacle realm all my life, yet never even grasping what that realm might be, how could I not be in anguish? Why? Just why? Sobbing, I looked up at the sky. Kim Young-hoon watched me with a heavy heart, then flicked his finger towards the tree I had crashed into. Splat. Immediately, a significant volume of martial arts techniques filled the tree. I've created martial arts to supplement your weaknesses during our spar. It's hardly a consolation, but I hope you'll master them and find some peace. After speaking, Kim Young-hoon disappeared like a phantom again. I gazed at the sky for a while before turning my attention to the martial art techniques he left. There were two: Mountain Lord martial arts and Transcending Peak Step. In just a short sparring session, he had effortlessly created two martial arts. I marveled at his incredible talent for martial arts and slowly studied the two techniques. Mountain Lord martial arts was a body technique. It dealt with pressuring the enemy with the presence of a Mountain Lord, creating movements like a tiger. Transcending Peak Step was a footwork technique. Uniquely, it allowed one to take any step and assume the stance of the first move of severing mountain swordsmanship, transcending peaks. Given the nature of severing mountain swordsmanship, any subsequent move could follow, allowing for endless combinations. Using Mountain Lord martial arts and Transcending Peaks Step together, it would be possible to pressure the enemy with the presence of a Mountain Lord and relentlessly attack with Transcending Peak Step, a technique to dry up and kill the opponent. These two perfectly complement the severing mountain swordsmanship. As so, they were also relatively easy to learn. I suddenly reflected on my martial prowess. Now, against a first-rate martial artist, I can guarantee a 100% win rate without resorting to tricks. I had completely surpassed the first-rate level, yet I still hadn't reached the pinnacle realm, somewhere between first-rate and the pinnacle. That was my current level of skill. How long must I remain in this realm, Catalyst? I mulled over Kim Young-hoon's words. What am I lacking? I couldn't figure it out. Time flowed on like a river once again. 50 years have passed since my return. My days were numbered. I had surpassed the first-rate level but was still not at the pinnacle realm. I was tired of wielding the sword. In my past life, I swung my sword until my dying breath. But in this life, despite being more skilled than before, swinging the sword felt burdensome. I guessed the reason. There's no meaning to it, that's why. For 50 years I wielded the sword. Yet I never became a peak master. What's the point of swinging the sword when death is near? It would all be the same anyway. Is he dead? That day I swung my sword and looked up at the sky. Kim Young-hoon hadn't appeared for almost 5 years. The last time we met, he was being pursued by core formation cultivators. Perhaps he was caught and killed by one or two of them. This must be our fate, his and mine. When was my death due? Perhaps in a few days my vital energy would be exhausted and I would die. Even now, swinging the sword was an act of willpower to overcome. Whoosh, the limits. Whoosh, as a human. Whoosh, there's only so far you can go. Whoosh, 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 I sighed and gazed aimlessly at the sky. With my talent, struggling all this time was my limit. And his talent too had its limits. Yes, starting from the next life, I should try a different approach. Knowing that I couldn't become a peak in a lifetime, I might as well beg cultivators for some elixir to attain spiritual quality. That would be the best I could do. Even if mortals struggle, they can't escape the destiny set by the heavens. Cough. Ah, suddenly, Kim Young-hoon appeared beside me like a phantom, coughing up blood. Cough, cough. What nonsense are you spouting, Seo Yoon-hyun? No, it's not that. Cough. Gagging. Despite coughing up blood, he was laughing. Both his arms were severed, and one eye was missing, scarred by a cut. Damn it, what happened? You're in bad shape. I was startled by his sudden appearance and hurried to check his pulse and fetch medical tools. Then something grabbed my nape. Hey, what is this? Weren't his arms severed? Something invisible was holding my nape, and Kim Young-hoon, despite coughing up blood, was laughing hysterically. Look, the price for blowing off one of the core formation cultivator's arms. I have inflicted significant damage on a core formation cultivator. What? I have seen the realm beyond the 5 energies converging to the origin with my own 2 eyes, he continued speaking while spewing blood. I reached it by risking my life, burning my life. Look, Yoon-hyun, I traveled hundreds of miles to show you. I decided to entrust my last words to you. Whoosh. Above Kim Young-hoon's head, a concentration of saber energy formed. I wasn't particularly surprised. Projecting internal energy into the air was a feat he'd shown several times after reaching the pinnacle realm. Gradually, the sword energy began to shine and change. It was Gang Kai. This is something he's done even in the 5 energies realm. But then, the Gang Kai began to change again. This is The gang Kai started compressing into a sphere. It was a change I'd never seen before in my several lifetimes following Kim Young-hoon. Like the day he first entered the Five Energies realm, 5 small spheres hovered above his head. The gang Kai morphed into a small spherical shape. With this, I could blow off a core formation cultivator's arm. Before, I could only fight Kai building cultivators using ambushes or surprise attacks, but with this, I can face them head-on in a battle of strength. Look, Yoon-hyun. This is the result of surpassing the martial arts of the martial world I've pursued my whole life. Whoosh, Kim Young-hoon launched the spherical mass of gang Kai towards the back of my house. Boom. An enormous explosion sounded, and the house I had built with all the money I had gathered over 50 years was destroyed in a second. My house. For a moment, I felt a mix of numbness and rage, but I managed to suppress it and examined the power of the martial art he displayed. The 3-story building exploded completely. There's hardly any debris left. Luckily, there were no servants around, otherwise it could have killed hundreds in one blow. Most importantly, the hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands of saber marks in the remaining debris. That gang Kai sphere contained tens of thousands of saber energies. The power is unimaginable. It's stronger than any martial art Kim Young-hoon has shown since reaching the 5 Energies realm. His claim about being able to confront cultivators in a head-on battle of strength seemed plausible. Moreover, his martial arts, which began with record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, were primarily designed for ambush and escape, so ambushing a core formation cultivator with this could have easily blown off an arm. I came to show you, Yoon-hyun. He whispered faintly, reciting some martial formulas. Remember, these formulas, they are the essence of my realizations compressed. Please pass on my martial arts to future generations. Don't speak, I'll treat you. I applied pressure points to stop his bleeding and was about to take him to a nearby doctor. Whoosh! A middle-aged man in blue robes appeared in the sky above my house. I've found you, extreme monster, so you've been hiding here. Listen, mortal. This man has committed grave crimes against the celestial clan of cultivators. Leave him and go. You've come to punish him. Yes, don't tell me you're an associate of this extreme monster, planning to protect him. Useless. Thud. Before the man could finish speaking, I hoisted Kim Young-hoon on my back and dashed towards a nearby mountain range. Tusk, he seems to be an associate of the extreme monster. Didn't he hear from the extreme monster about us cultivators? The middle-aged man's voice seemed to echo everywhere. Well. Let's enjoy this last bit of entertainment. Run if you can. Swoosh, from the direction where the middle-aged man was, light burst, and several black masses fell to the ground. Thud, thud, thud. The masses that fell to the ground rose up and started chasing after me. Are those? Corpses. Moving corpses, Jiangxi Chinese zombies. GRR. Warg. The Jiangxi chased after me. Unlike old me, these dead things didn't tire and kept charging. By the way, Extreme Monster, is that a nickname given by the cultivators? Unique. I kept talking to keep the barely conscious Kim Young-hoon awake while fleeing. 2 monsters being chased by Jiangxi in their old age. What a peculiar sight. Damn it. I knew this would happen when you started picking fights with those cultivators. But if you were going to do that, you should have won outright. Why just blow off an arm? What's the point? A Jiangxi that had gotten close extended its claws at me. Damn it, corpses are immune to poison. Thwack, I threw a hidden weapon, hitting the Jiangxi's ankle joint precisely. The Jiangxi stumbled and fell, and I took the opportunity to flee even farther. Damn it. Shouldn't you be carrying me and running, given you've reverted to a younger body? I'm out of breath. Why are your arms cut off anyway? The Jiangxi relentlessly pursued me. I gritted my teeth and kept running. Morning passed, noon passed, and night fell. How many times had the sun risen and set? Huff, huff. I ended up cornered in a dead end. A large cliff behind me blocked the way, and Jiangxi surrounded me in front. Amazing. A mere mortal withstanding my Jiangxi for 3 days and nights. Huff, huff. I looked up at the middle-aged man floating in the sky, gasping for breath. Now you have nowhere to run, and there's no need. The extreme monster is already dead, isn't he, mortal? Huff, huff. Sweat poured down like rain, my legs trembled. But with the last of my willpower from 50 years of training, I spoke to the cultivator. I know. Any first-rate doctor can recognize a corpse. That Kim Young-hoon, this madman, died of excessive bleeding. I know that. Then why did you run? Mortal, I'm only interested in the extreme monster's head. Your insignificant life means nothing to me. You should have just left the body and fled. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. I laughed crazily and slowly laid down Kim Young-hoon's body. This man was my martial arts master. Is it right to hand over my master's body to an outsider, even if you are a cultivator? Severing mountain swordsmanship, dragon vein Kai method, mountain lord martial arts and transcending peak step, and everything else that helped me reach this level. It was all thanks to Kim Young-hoon's teachings. He was a fellow countryman and also my martial arts master. If you want my master's head, you'll have to take mine first? How dare you speak so boldly to a practitioner of the Tao? You've got some nerve. It seems like your vital energy is depleting and you don't have much time left. Are you being brave because you're about to die? My shout seemed to irk the middle-aged man in blue robes. These mortals, ignorant of what it means to be a Taoist cultivator. It seems they don't understand what we are capable of. Are you not afraid of death? Or do you not value your life? In that case, I'll show you. Cultivators of the Tao have the power to inflict suffering worse than death. The man in blue robes began muttering some incantation, extending his hand towards me. I hastily dodged, anticipating an attack, but his spell targeted not me, but something else. What is this? The cultivator's spell had settled into Kim Young-hoon's corpse, and the dead man began to rise again. The surrounding jiangshi each detached an arm and threw it towards the reanimating corpse of Kim Young-hoon. The arms of the jiangshi attached to the shoulders of Kim Young-hoon's corpse. A jiangshi? The cultivator had turned Kim Young-hoon into a jiangshi with his spell. You wretched mortal, how dare you scream in the presence of a Taoist cultivator? Now pay the price. Go on, extreme monster, kill this disciple of yours with your own hands. Grr. Ah, the corpse of Kim Young-hoon staggered and then lunged at me. I quickly drew my sword to block his strike and retreated. This, vile cultivator? To dishonor the spirit of the deceased in such a way, I gritted my teeth, blocking each attack from the transformed jiangshi. Fortunately, he can't use his martial arts from his lifetime. He was only pushing me with the strength and speed of a jiangshi. Naturally, the strength infused by the cultivator seemed formidable, imposing a tremendous burden on my aged body with its sheer power and speed. Damn it, damn it! With each strike of my sword, my eyes reddened in rage. Every slash I made at Kim Young-hoon's body felt like a tremendous insult. I'm sorry. But I steeled my heart and took my fighting stance. If this is how it is, let's end it quickly. Severing mountain swordsmanship, 21st move, Heavenly Lake. Old memories rushed in. Why is the 21st move of severing mountain swordsmanship called Heavenly Lake? All other stances have names related to valleys, peaks, or mountains, but why this one, early in this life? I had asked Kim Young-hoon, wondering if he knew since the revised severing mountain swordsmanship included this stance by his previous cycle's self. Heavenly Lake. It reminds me of Baekdu Mountain's Heavenly Lake. Baekdu Mountain? Ha, yes. Does this world also have a Heavenly Lake like Baekdu Mountain? Or maybe someone from Korea like us named this move. Ha, I guess so. Heavenly Lake, a vast lake reflecting the sky, a vast pool located at the highest mountain peak. The spirit of that terrain naturally emanated from me. Imagery of Heavenly Lake, along with the countless memories of being taught martial arts by Kim Young-hoon, came to mind. The essence of severing mountain swordsmanship flowed through my memory. The Heavenly Lake holds the myriad forms of the heavens, yet it itself never changes. In essence, the symbolized heaven represents the object I contend with. The lake that contains it signifies my single strike. Crash sword energy swept over Kim Young-hoon's entire body, and my sword was sheathed back into its scabbard. In an instant, his movements froze. The 21st move of severing mountain swordsmanship, Heavenly Lake, is a technique that momentarily suppresses the opponent's movements by drawing in all the power flowing through their meridians into my sword energy, trapping it within my sword. A skill that could only be executed by someone who is both a first-rate doctor and an expert in the 8 extraordinary meridians. A martial art exclusively tailored for me, an extraordinary move that no one but I could perform. Rumble. Within the sheathed sword, the briefly stolen power surged. Left alone, it would eventually dissipate, but I chose to preserve this energy and resumed the stance for the next move. Severing mountain swordsmanship, 22nd move. Excluding the 23rd and 24th moves, which are more conceptual and theoretical. The true secret technique of severing mountain swordsmanship. If the corpse is intact, it could be used by the cultivator as a zombie. Therefore, I have to leave no corpse behind. Rest in peace. Severing mountain swordsmanship. The secret technique. Severing mountain. The content of the severing mountain swordsmanship secret technique was not grandiose. True to its purpose of cutting through mountains, it was simply about making brute sword cuts. Starting from the first move, transcending peaks, all the way to the 21st move, Heavenly Lake, pouring all the moves at once on the opponent. That was the secret technique of severing mountain swordsmanship, severing mountain. The first move, transcending peaks. With the unsheathing of the sword, I rode the flow of power stolen from Kim Young-hoon's body, cutting him horizontally. The second move, entering mountain, quickly switching to a lower stance to strike his legs. The third move, ascending vein, cutting upward while holding the sword from the lower stance. The fourth move, flowing ridge, sending winding sword energy to stab. The fifth move, bouldered cliff, rotating and delivering several slashing strikes. The sixth move, strange stone, changing the grip and adding a deceptive move. The seventh move, deep mountain, returning into a defensive posture and cutting diagonally upward. The eighth move, secluded valley, twisting and nullifying the opponent's force aimed at me. The ninth move, landscape painting, delivering diagonal sword energy strikes from left and right, totaling 6 slashes. The 10th move, dragon vein, drawing up energy to make a large cut. The 11th move, cliff edge, cutting again from below upward. The 12th move, 9 lights emerging peak, sending 9 streams of sword energy beyond. By this point, Kim Young-hoon's body was completely tattered, to completely obliterate it, so that the cultivator could not revive any part and desecrate the spirit even in its tattered state. It writhed and attacked me again. Tremendous power and speed. I must avoid it. No, what's the point of avoiding? My life is already at its end. A life already destined for death. At this moment, to ensure that my master's legacy is no longer insulted, burn everything. Ag. The 13th move, joy of mountains and peaks. Striking down 5 slashes and then another 5, 10 slashes in total, enveloping him from all directions. Kaya, the Jiangxi's hand broke through the barrage of slashes, attacking me. I'm going to die. I can't die yet. More, just a bit more, draw more energy. My brain processed and input information faster. The surrounding space, sound, smell, the humidity and temperature, the taste of blood on my tongue. It felt like my brain would explode. Let it burst more and more until my brain burns completely. The 14th move, Kai Mountain Heart Heaven. The dragon vein Kai method surged, and my momentum grew immense. Simultaneously, sword energy condensed, taking the form of sword silk. In this situation, a direct strike was inevitable, and then, crackle my brain under the pressure of impending death burst through something. Ah, is this my imagination? Red and blue, all the colors of the world vanished, leaving only these two, red and blue. Ah, is this? A red line extended from Kim Young-hoon's fingertips to my head. Instinctively, I sensed it was the next attack. Whoosh. I avoided the attack with minimal movement and raised my sword. A blue line stretched from my sword to his ribs. Instinctively, I sensed it was the optimal path for me. Entranced, I followed the blue line with my sword. Slash, my sword cut through his upper body. Somehow, Kim Young-hoon's face seemed to be smiling faintly. Seeing that faint smile, I repeated a thought I had before. A genius bestowed by heaven, and a dunce abandoned by heaven. Poles apart, yet we seemed alike. The reason was because in the fate given by the heavens, we both struggled desperately. Here, there are neither geniuses nor dunces, only those who spent their lives resisting fate and those who will die doing the same. Yes, as long as we live in the fate given by the heavens, talent is irrelevant. We are similar humans. Is this how you're ending it on his corpse? It seemed Kim Young-hoon's face from his living days was reflected. Of course not. As if bewitched, I continued to unleash my sword. The 15th move, Layered Mountains. Thousands of sword energies thinly split, becoming a storm that enveloped his entire body. A defensive move originally used to nullify the opponent's energy evolved into a lethal strike, optimized for the situation. The 16th move, Mountain Tiger. The claws and fangs of the tiger living in the layered mountains concentrated at a single point, tearing through his body. The 17th move, Mountain and Valley Transformation. Sword energy sent to the ground changed the terrain, shaking his foundation. The 18th move, Echoing Valley. Emptying my intent in the sword energy to counter and strike back. The 19th move, Mountains Echoes, Valleys Respond. Sword energy transformed into a wave, delivering a strike that he couldn't avoid, shredding his body. The 20th move, 9 Mountains, 8 Seas. Rotating several times on the spot and delivering cuts in all directions, tearing apart his form. The 21st move, Heavenly Lake. Swinging the sword again, gathering all the waves, flows, and power I had unleashed into the sword. Rumble. The power of all the waves, flows, and power from the 20 moves of severing mountain swordsmanship were gathered. This vast energy was suppressed inside the sheathed sword. I unsheathed my sword again, just like at the beginning, concentrating all this power into a single slashing strike. Severing mountain swordsmanship. My 22nd move, the secret technique. Severing mountain. The essence of severing mountain swordsmanship in a single strike, releasing this final strike, I saw the passing of my life before my eyes. Ah, yes, this is the end, flash. With my strike, Kim Young-hoon's body completely shattered, scattering in all directions. Now, even if a cultivator comes, his body cannot be further desecrated. Thus, I ascended to the new realm I had longed for, and concluded this tenacious life. That was my 4th return. Translator notes, here's an extra chapter, longest chapter so far for Christmas, and to finish up the arc. Chapter 17, 4th cycle's first day. Ah, I opened my eyes, a familiar feeling. Another regression, it seems. I recalled the last moments of my past life, resisting until the very end. Finally, I have ascended. Yes, I'm fully conscious now. In that last moment, I reached the peak. Overwhelmed with excitement, I looked up at the sky, oblivious to my surroundings, and shouted. Finally, at last! I had reached the long-coveted peak. Buzz, a familiar sound echoes. Jeon Myung-hoon, a face I haven't seen in a while, is there. But I didn't even glance in his direction, just closed my eyes again. Swoosh. Jeon Myung-hoon's hand cuts through the air towards me. Feeling his movement, I awakened that sensation I had reached just before dying. I can see it even with my eyes closed. It's vivid. A red trajectory was aimed at my cheek. With my eyes still shut, I dodged Jeon Myung-hoon's slap with the optimum movement. This guy dodged it? Whoosh, whoosh. Jeon Myung-hoon swung his hand several more times, but I, still with closed eyes, dodged every one of his strikes with minimal movement. I can see it. Jeon Myung-hoon's next move, the direction of his hand. It's searely visible. In the past, I could dodge someone like Jeon Myung-hoon without even looking, but that was all based on decades of martial arts training and predicting where he'll strike. But now it's different. The red thread lines reveal his path. Whether my eyes are open or closed, these thread lines are vividly present. This is not prediction, but more like premonition. Is this the vision of a peak master? I finally understood why a first-rot master, even when outnumbering the enemy, could never defeat a peak master. It's visible. The direction and trajectory of attacks by inferior first-rate warriors are clearly visible. How could they win if their attacks can't even touch a peak master? To confront a peak master, a first-rate warrior would need to attack with dozens of people in a swarm strategy, setting aside the direction and trajectory of the attack. I set my determination and faced Jian Myung-hoon, who was rushing towards me. At the same time, the red lines indicating his trajectory disappeared, and my vision was filled with blue lines. Face, shoulders, chest, arms, flanks, stomach, lower abdomen, pelvis, legs, knees, feet. Blue lines densely targeted dozens of spots. Instinctively, I knew. These blue lines indicate the opponent's vulnerabilities and the optimal path for my attack. The gap in combat skills between me and Jian Myung-hoon must be so vast that so many vulnerabilities are exposed. So that's it. The red and blue back then. Ah, a master of 3 flowers. The first I've seen in this city besides myself. 3 flowers aren't common. Most live their lives only in red and blue. I, too, haven't met a master like you in a long time. A conversation between Kim Young-hoon and Pal Jikti, Supreme Elder of the Kia River sect, during my second regression. Pal Jikti indeed mentioned red and blue back then. At the time, I didn't understand a word, but now I do. He was talking about this vision that peak masters see. The red line to read the opponent's attack. The blue line for the optimal attack. This dual-colored world where one can exchange gaps was the world of peak masters, the red and blue world he mentioned. When I reached this conclusion, drip what? I suddenly felt a nosebleed. At the same time, I felt pain. It hurts, as if my brain is burning. Damn. Does using this vision overload the brain? I quickly sealed the acupoints of Jian Myung-hoon, who was rushing at me, quickly deactivated vision, and put him to sleep with sleep-inducing herbs. There was pain the moment I activated vision, but I ignored it. However, as the usage time extended, the pain intensified, eventually feeling like my brain was burning. The time I used vision in the scuffle with Jian Myung-hoon was mere moments, and yet the pain is this intense. What's the problem? After pondering for a while, I calmed my still-confused colleagues, took them to a cave, lit a fire, cooked fruits and grilled mushrooms, and put them to sleep. After the sun set and all my colleagues were asleep, I sat outside the cave and organized my thoughts. Let's sort out what Pinnacle Realm is all about. The Pinnacle Realm essentially overloads the brain to visualize and read the opponent's path of combat. Even for a blind person, if they can read the opponent's path, 2 colors vividly appear in their mind, as if experiencing it. It's more than visualization. It's like my brain arbitrarily colors the paths I foresee in blue and red. Using this vision, I can read every movement of my opponent and target their vulnerabilities with the optimal path. This is why, in my past life, Kim Young-hoon's constant application of maximized senses to me seemed like an imitation of the Pinnacle Realm. I indirectly calculated the opponent's path by maximizing the senses. But due to my lack of talent, I only awakened to this Pinnacle Realm at the very end, despite having imitated it. Amazing. Once again, I looked at the world through the vision of the Pinnacle Realm. Watching the leaves fall at night, I envisioned the blue lines. Hundreds, thousands of blue threads appeared, directed at the leaves. I grabbed a nearby branch and swung it towards the leaves. The branch was blunt, not even shaped like a sword. Even the leaves, fresh and fluttering in the night breeze, were not easy targets. Yet the moment I struck the leaves with the branch, following the optimal path the blue lines showed, they were sliced. Crack! The leaves were cut cleanly in half by the blunt branch, not imbued with any internal energy. On the first day of my regression in my previous life, I had briefly reached this state. I was unconscious then, but now my consciousness is clear. I stood up, holding the branch, and danced with it as if it were a sword. As I danced amidst the fluttering leaves, they all were cut by the branch. Swish, swish. Countless sword strokes pierced the leaves. Thousands of optimal paths extended before my eyes. I closed my eyes, imagining the fluttering leaves as first-rate masters. With no internal energy and only a slightly thick branch in hand, could I defeat so many first-rate masters? I can win. First-rate masters, each armed with their weapons, charged at me. Spears, swords, hidden weapons, maces, polearms, fists, lances, broadswords, and countless other weapons assaulted me. But I wasn't afraid. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Continuously dancing with my sword, I dodged the first-rate master's weapons and linked the optimal sword paths. With my single sword stroke, their techniques were dismantled, their balance destroyed, and all were defeated. Ha! When I opened my eyes, there were numerous split leaves around me. Drip. Despite the nosebleed and the burning sensation in my brain from using the vision, I felt exhilarated. I am now a peak master? I stopped the nosebleed with a medicinal herb, then wandered around digging up centuries-old yellow bamboo roots. Perhaps the inability to maintain the vision for long is due to the lack of internal energy. A certain level of internal energy is necessary to endure and extend the duration of the vision. After digging up the roots, I chewed and swallowed them right there, leaving only a few for Kim Young-hoon. Now that I had ascended to a peak master, there was no need to sell them. Yellow bamboo roots. I'll leave just a couple for Kim Young-hoon and consume the rest. There were about 10 roots around my vicinity in Ascension Path, and probably more if I expanded my search, but it wasn't necessary. I consumed 8 yellow bamboo roots, excluding the 2 for Kim Young-hoon. Gurgling. Guided by the Dragon Vein Kai method, the immense spiritual power of the yellow bamboo roots surged through my meridians. Phew! An immense reserve of internal energy accumulated in an instant. I had more internal energy now than in my previous life, where I had practiced for 50 years. Shall I try again? Aided massive internal energy, I activated the Peak Master's vision again. I practiced with the vision for about an hour with no significant issues. The burning discomfort started after about a meal's time. That's my limit, about an hour and a half. No matter how much internal power I had, it only delayed the onset of pain. It didn't eliminate it. The only way is to repeatedly train using the Peak Master's vision. To reduce the burning pain and gradually acclimate my brain to the vision. Endless training is the answer. I might not be a genius, but this is the best way for someone not born with talent. This life's goal is to first overcome the burning pain when using the Peak Master's vision and ultimately. 3 flowers gather at the summit. To reach the 3 flowers gather at the summit, also known as the pinnacle of pinnacle. I won't aim for the 5 energies converging to the origin realm in this life. The 3 flowers gather at the summit is already challenging enough. The realm of 3 flowers was somewhat graspable, as the Supreme Elder of Kia River sect said, the 3rd. Red symbolizes the enemy's intent, blue my intent. Besides these, there is a 3rd color, the line that separates the 3 flowers gather at the summit from the rest of the pinnacle realm, the 3rd, though I can't quite grasp what it is. The leap from first rate to peak felt insurmountable, but reaching the 3 flowers gather at the summit from the peak seems slightly easier. Smiling, I looked at Kim Young-hoon, sleeping in the cave. Surely, I'll be able to learn much more from him now. Having reached the peak, the level of teaching I could receive from Kim Young-hoon would be incomparable to when I was just a first-rate master. Moreover, I possessed the 6 volumes of insights and the final formula left by the previous Kim Young-hoon. This life's Kim Young-hoon will certainly surpass the one from before. I, too, in this life, will achieve the 3 flowers gather at the summit and get closer to being a true cultivator. With that resolution, I peacefully watched the rising morning sun in front of the cave. Translator notes, things start to get a bit more interesting from now on. Chapter 18. Peak Master 1. The morning dawned. As in previous regressions, the 3-tailed fox as large as a house, the supposed ruler of this forest, came to visit us. I bowed simply to the fox and offered my arm, proposing as tribute. During this, a curiosity struck me. Would I see red lines on the fox? As the fox drooled over my arm, I activated the vision of a peak master. I then witnessed a terrifying sight. Red everywhere. The whole world around me was covered in red. Gasp. If humans had shown me trajectories in the shape of lines, the fox was different. From the center of its forehead, a crimson light engulfed everything around. It wasn't just lines. It was more than a surface. It was a three-dimensional form, with the red light devouring the surrounding space. I can't win. Acknowledging the fox's red light, its domain, I could only extend my arm in awe. Crunch, crunch. Even as the fox chewed off my arm, I could only groan in astonishment, observing its domain. What is this? How can space be filled with red light like this? I couldn't understand. What kind of creature was this? And then, a few days later, the arrival of cultivators made me wear an astonished expression again. Red. The three monsters who came to retrieve Jian Myung-hoon, Oh Hyun-seok, and Kang Min-hee were similar to the fox, with red light emanating from them, engulfing the space around. That's when I understood the difference between cultivators and martial artists. In martial arts, at best, their paths and intents form lines. But with cultivators, for some reason, their intents take over the entire space. I imagined fighting those cultivators in a space dominated by their red light. I can't win. I understood why even the lowest cultivators were on par with a peak master. Even without actual combat experience, if they can dominate space with their intents like that, it's impossible for a peak master to read a cultivator's intentions. Conversely, within their dominated space, a cultivator would know everything like the back of their hand. It was a complete mismatch in terms of compatibility. The next day, after they took my colleagues, I seized the opportunity to ask Sea Dragon King Seo Hweol, who came for Deputy Manager Oh Seo. I have a question for Lord Sea Dragon King. What is it? After briefly explaining what I saw, I asked about the cultivator's red territory. Seo Hweol laughed and explained to me. Cultivators all possess something called divine consciousness. Ordinary mortals' consciousness doesn't extend beyond their brain, but cultivators can extend it to cover the surrounding space, allowing them to know anything they wish. I, as a spiritual creature, have the same ability. Is this answer sufficient? Thank you. Since our conversation was in the language of Yongyuo, Kim Young-hoon and others seemed to not understand. Shortly after Seo Hweol left, a hunchbacked grotesque figure appeared to take Manager Kim away, pushing me and Kim Young-hoon into a spatial rift. I lost consciousness again. Splash! Gurgling, bubbling, I suddenly found myself engulfed in a current, snapped to my senses, and struggled. What's this? This is. It was underwater. Gulp, gulp, regaining my senses, I swam towards the light above. Having learned to swim decently in my past life while hunting water bandits, I had no problem swimming. Puff, damn it. Last time it was a tree, now it's underwater. What variety? It was likely Yongyuo again, but the problem was I was randomly dropped somewhere in Yongyuo. Looking around, it was a large lake. Wait, where's Kim Young-hoon? While scanning the surroundings, I suddenly looked down into the lake. I saw Kim Young-hoon with bubbles escaping his mouth, sinking below. Damn, he'll die if I leave him. I quickly swam down, lifted Kim Young-hoon, and swam back to the surface. On the shore, I laid Kim Young-hoon down and used acupressure to force the water out of his lungs and stomach. Sploosh. Kim Young-hoon spat out water from his mouth and nose and seemed to regain consciousness after a while. Gasp. Where is this? We're completely somewhere else. After briefly explaining the situation to him, we surveyed our surroundings. Judging by the location, this must be Chicken Head Lake, I mused. The lake was named so because, from above, it resembled the head of a chicken. After 4 lifetimes, there was no place in Yongyuo I didn't know. Nearby should be Changho City. Ugh, what do we do? If we've fallen completely somewhere else, are there any people around? It seems so. Look, there's a building over there. Oh, really? I pointed to a waterborne building erected at the corner of Chicken Head Lake. I can swim, so I'll go to that building and borrow some clothes, money, and food. Wait, will they understand you? Actually, I've learned Chinese, and it seems to work well enough. I'll teach you later. After making an excuse, I swam towards the building. If my memory serves me right, this building was the den of Chicken Waterway Fort, a place I had raided in my past life. The head of Chicken Waterway Fort was a late first-rate master, and the vice leader was mid-first-rate. The other 4 major bandits seemed to be barely first-rate. The rest were insignificant, mostly between third and second rate. Still, I had to previously use poison due to their numbers. Splash, splash. A few second-rate water bandits, keeping watch at the den, shouted upon seeing me. "Hey, who are you, man?" "Haha, who's this crazy guy?" "Swimming to Chicken Waterway Fort?" "Haha, is he trying to join the fort or what?" "Looks like a newbie." Haha, I ignored their remarks and slowly approached the building. Then one of the bandits started to lower his trousers. Haha, hey newbie. "If you want to enter the main house, you have to undergo hazing." Drip, drip. A yellow stream accompanied by a foul smell came towards me. Droplets of the yellow liquid splashed on my head. The guy aimed directly at my head, trying to hit me with it. Splat, splat. Calmly taking the hit, I climbed up Chicken Waterway Fort, but... Thump, thump, how dare you come up here, won't you go back down? "Man, hurry up and take the holy water baptism from the brother." Ha ha ha. The low-ranked bandits pushed me with wooden sticks, trying to push me back into the water. I ignored their attacks and eventually made it up to the fort. Damn it, I told you not to come up. A bandit with a wooden stick charged at me. Whack, KRR, arg. I kicked his ankle at an invisible speed, knocking him down. Decent enough. I picked up the wooden stick he dropped, weighed it in my hand, and held onto it. "First, you. How many have you killed in Chicken Waterway Fort?" You damn bastard. I've killed more than 50 with my own hands." Thwack. I didn't wait for his full response and swung the stick, beheading him. "Next, you guys. How many have you killed so far?" What the hell is he doing?" Swoosh, swoosh. The remaining bandits drew their swords without hesitation and charged at me. Seeing no hesitation in your stabs, you must have killed a lot. Swoosh, swoosh. I swung the stick again, cleanly slicing the charging bandits and dropping them into the water. Ugh, ugh. Wait a minute. The last one left was the bandit who had urinated on me. "I'm a newbie in Chicken Waterway Fort. I haven't killed anyone yet. The others called you brother. Please spare." Whoosh, swoosh. I cleanly cut him from his lower parts to his head. Splat. After washing off the dirty urine with the blood of the bandits, I entered deeper into fort. Bandits were wildly smoking cigarettes and drugs, drinking and playing with women. The women, mostly captured, were tied up and bruised. Haha, what's that? A bandit noticed me covered in blood and rubbed his eyes. What's this? What kind of guy is this? Hey, grab your weapons. Looks like we have a guest. Though drunk, they were used to killing people and naturally took positions with their weapons. There's no need to ask about those inside. Whoosh, I infused the wooden stick with sword energy. Die, all of you. What are you doing? Welcome the guest. Yeah, Heh. From the front above and both sides, the water bandits, each holding a weapon, rushed towards me. I entered the vision of a peak master. Red lines were prevalent all around. Those lines were the trajectories of attacks aimed at me, so this is what it feels to be at the peak. It felt somewhat ludicrous, knowing in advance that none of them could touch me. I closed my eyes, for facing such people, sight was unnecessary, with my eyes closed, not listening to any sound, not paying attention to touch. Focusing only on the red lines, I raised the stick in my hand. First move, transcending peaks. Swoosh, bending my waist, I dodged the weapons of the first 3, then swung my sword horizontally, bisecting them. Second move, entering mountain. Switching to a lower stance, I cut off the legs of 5 bandits charging from around. Third move, ascending vein. In the lower stance, I adjusted my grip on the sword and swung upwards. Then, using the transcending peak step, I leaped into the middle of the bandits and swung my sword again. Transcending peaks, entering mountain, ascending vein. Continuously using these 3 basic techniques, I avoided the red lines and extended my sword energy in the direction the blue lines indicated, cutting them all down. Transcending peaks, entering mountain, ascending vein. Ascending vein, entering mountain, ascending vein, transcending peaks, ascending vein, entering mountain. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. With minimal movement, I cut down all the bandits. When no more red lines aimed at me were visible, I opened my eyes to find a sea of blood around me. Arg. Looking to one side, the leader of Chicken Waterway Fort was writhing, trying to crawl out. From my memory, he was a late first-rate master. Among those I had recklessly cut down, he was one of them. Hey! I approached the nearly dead leader and spoke to him. Peak Master. Spare me. Hey, I have one question for you. How long have I been fighting in this place? About 1 moment. All right, thanks, die. Wait, the money where I hid it. Swoosh, I didn't wait for his answer and beheaded him. I already knew where you hid your private funds from my last visit. Leaving the leader's head, I freed the tied women and went to the prison, releasing those who seemed to be captives. Thank you, great hero. Thank you for avenging us against those damn water bandits. I nodded to the captives and women thanking me, and went to the leader's room to take out 2 of the most decent-looking sets of clothes. Then, I broke the wall of the leader's room and took out a small wooden chest containing his hidden funds. When I opened the chest, there were 3 silver ingots inside. He was a thrifty bandit. I changed out of my blood-stained clothes into the leader's clothes and boarded a rowboat attached to the fort. Great hero, if you could tell me your name or title, I will surely repay you. Name or title? When one of the freed captives asked, I pondered, scratching my head. I haven't regressed for long, so I didn't spend much time yet. After a moment of thought, I brought up the title I used in my past life. My title is Infinite Fighting Monster. That's all you need to know. Thank you, great hero. I will surely repay you someday. I understand, Tilda, I'm off then, so make sure you all get out safely. To avoid any further hassle, I rowed the boat back to the lakeshore. Kim Young-hoon was waiting for me there. Oh, you changed your clothes? Yes, the owner was kind enough to give them to me. I told him our situation, and he even lent us money. Such a simple and kind person, it's refreshing to see such countryside generosity. We should thank the owner. I couldn't see the house well from afar, but what kind of place was it? As far as I heard, it's like something made by local fishermen, a place made for easier fishing, something like that. Is that so? That's quite interesting. I half listened to Kim Young-hoon, and together we headed towards the nearby Changho City. In my past life, it took about a day to raid Chicken Waterway Fort and annihilate them. That too involved pre-poisoning them and setting fire to Chicken Waterway Fort to kill as many possible with carbon monoxide poisoning. Even with all that, it took a day to annihilate them. But now, fighting in the Pinnacle Realm, I wiped them all out in just a moment. All that with just a wooden stick. That was the difference between peak and first-rate. In my previous life as a first-rate warrior, I obtained things suitable for first-rate. Now, as a peak master, I can obtain things befitting a peak master. It hadn't been long since I regressed. But this life seems more promising than any previous one. Chapter 19. Peak Master 2. Together with Kim Young-hoon, I headed to Changho City and used the money looted from the bandits to create identity plaques and buy a manor. There, I taught him literacy and martial arts. About 2 months later, he's growing faster. Slightly bemused, I watched Kim Young-hoon consuming yellow bamboo roots and entering the realm of 3 flowers gather at the summit. It seemed that my ascension to a peak master and earnestly imparting a first-rate martial art, severing vein saber method, had spurred such rapid growth. It's a bit anticlimactic, but it was always like this. While some spent a lifetime reaching the pinnacle realm, others, with the guidance of a peak master and first-rate martial arts, leapfrogged the pinnacle realm and directly entered 3 flowers. Soon, 3 flower-like energies were absorbed through his nose and mouth, and Kim Young-hoon half opened his eyes. His eyes gleamed with wisdom. Congratulations on reaching 3 flowers gather at the summit. To think you achieved it before even fully learning literacy. I find it astonishing myself. Who knew I had such martial talent? I looked at Kim Young-hoon impassively. A hint of competitive spirit arose in me. Up until now, after Kim Young-hoon reached 3 flowers, I never really sparred with him. It was always him guiding me in practice spars. What about now, me, having ascended to Peak Master, and Kim Young-hoon, who has just reached 3 flowers? Firstly, congratulations. How about a sparring match? Sparring sounds good. Somehow I feel I might win this time. He drew his saber, igniting his competitive spirit. I drew my sword as well. In the manor's practice yard, 2 peak masters began their duel. Ping, I launched my killing intent at Kim Young-hoon. Dozens of blue lines attached themselves to him. Dozens of optimal paths targeted him. Then, Kim Young-hoon readjusted his stance. Dozens of blue lines disappeared. His weaknesses vanished, rendering all my potential attacks useless. Woong, simultaneously, hundreds of red thread lines targeted me. I shifted my stance to eliminate my vulnerabilities and prepared to counterattack Kim Young-hoon's moves. As I did, the red lines extending from him receded. How intertwined our red and blue lines must have been. Kim Young-hoon initiated the attack. Severing vein, saber, mountain wind. Ping, a piercing attack with astonishing speed, yet from that pierce, hundreds more red lines branched out. A sign of numerous follow-up moves. Severing mountain swordsmanship, strange stone. Whoosh, 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 I spun in place, taking a defensive and offensive posture, blocking his thrust. Severing vein, saber, grand white, his thrust twisted in midair, slashing from my upper right to lower left. Severing mountain swordsmanship, transcending peaks. I countered his saber with a horizontal slash, then recalculated dozens of paths. My blue lines targeted his head, waist, and legs. Severing mountain swordsmanship, entering mountain. Woong, I switched to a lower stance and aimed for his leg. In that brief moment, dozens of blue and red lines exchanged between us. Severing vein, saber, dragon's mound. Similar to severing mountain swordsmanship's flowing ridge, but with more intricate variations, the technique descended upon me. In that brief moment, dozens more thread lines exchanged in the air between us. We had already exchanged dozens of moves in this imaginary realm. Dodge. No, dodging would keep pushing me back. That would lead to defeat. It doesn't matter. It's just a sparring match. But a surge of competitiveness rose within me. Why? Right. In this life, this might be my only chance to beat Kim Young-hoon. From now on, he will grow exponentially like a fish in water or a runaway train. Next time we spar, he'll be beyond my reach. This time, when he's just ascended to 3 flowers, is my last chance in this life to defeat him. Yes, let's win. Even if it means using everything I have. I quickly moved my hand, grabbing a hidden weapon from my sleeve. Infinite fighting hidden weapon technique, direct snake. Pivot. The small weapon I launched from my hand flew towards Kim Young-hoon's face. He dodged quickly, his face showing surprise. But that gave me an opening in his stance. Ting, I deflected his saber and went on the offensive, severing mountain swordsmanship, flowing ridge. F-wit. The serpentine sword energy shot towards him. It's blocked. A red line is drawn at an angle that could deflect my sword. At the same time, a new branch extends from that line, aiming for my shoulder. After deflecting, counterattack. Swish, simultaneously, I pull out another weapon from my sleeve. Holding the weapon, the number of blue lines I can use doubles. His red lines changes. The red branch that stretched from his saber to my shoulder now shifts towards my weapon. Only after deflecting my weapon does the red branch stretch back towards me. Good. But it's still not enough. I have more real combat experience. Dragon Vein, Kai Mountain, Heart Heaven, Cliff Edge. I incorporate 3 techniques into one movement. With Dragon Vein, I rapidly circulate my internal energy to strengthen my sword energy. Simultaneously, I open all the meridians in my body with Kai Mountain. Heart Heaven to further strengthen the energy. With Cliff Edge, I vary the speed of my sword to make it difficult to react. Swish, sword silk forms at the tip of my sword, materializing the internal energy. However, despite unleashing my enhanced sword energy, Kim Young-hoon swiftly retreated using a stepping technique, avoiding a direct hit. My sword only grazed his chest, causing a small scratch. That's it. I've got the momentum. Mountain Lord's martial arts, transcending peak step. I charge with the momentum of a Mountain Lord, approaching with transcending peak step, then using Mountain Tiger to feign multiple strikes while actually using a diversion tactic to engage in a melee. At the same time, ping, ping. I launch the weapon in my other hand while clashing blades with him, though I'm pushing him back. Kim Young-hoon finds an opportunity to counterattack, extending several red lines. Treating it as real combat, I seize every opportunity. from throwing sand from the ground, spitting hidden needles, and persisting with tricky attacks. Kim Young-hoon, gradually cornered, infuses more energy into his saber with frustration. Woong, the momentum shifts. Dangerous. Something big is coming. I'll show you the realm of 3 flowers gather at the summit. Woong, the energy in his saber begins to transform. The intangible saber energy condenses, forming tangible threads like silk, evolving once again. That's the energy enveloping his saber fully materializes, emitting a bright white light. Saber silk? The bright white light engulfs everything in front of me. If I clash with it, my sword will likely be cut in two. Any peak master would face the same fate. But my severing mountain swordsmanship was created by a genius of the era who had reached the absolute of martial arts. Severing mountain swordsmanship. Echoing valley? A technique that shook off even Kim Young-hoon's energy in the previous life. If it's his energy at this early stage of 3 flowers gather at the summit, it's possible. Woong. Remove intent from the sword, make it empty, and then accept the opponent's force. Reversed. Kwang, I receive Kim Young-hoon's energy and counter it back at him. A loud explosion follows, and Kim Young-hoon steps back 3 paces. Impressive. Thwoong, Kim Young-hoon's saber splits in 2. Inside, I'm shocked. He countered my reversal with his energy in that short time. By my calculations, when I countered with Echoing Valley, he should have been thrown back, his saber shattered. But in that moment, he recaptured his saber energy and countered with it. I admit defeat. My weapon is broken, a disgrace for any warrior. You're quite skilled, aren't you? Don't worry. From now on, I will never be able to beat you again. I sheathe my sword and speak calmly. After today's duel, I won't be able to beat Kim Young-hoon in my next life either. He grew in real time during the fight and will become stronger after consolidating his insights. Fighting me, he gained near-real combat experience and will soon become one of the top 3 great warriors. Actually, I've prepared a congratulatory gift for you reaching the pinnacle realm. Oh, wasn't this duel the gift? Is there more? Yes, here. I entered the house and gave him 6 books I had prepared. This is Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts Scripture. I bought it from an old man. The minimum requirement is 3 flowers gathering at the summit. I read it but couldn't understand, so I'm giving it to you. Oh, what a fortunate encounter. I'll read it gratefully. The insights gained from the record of Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts were maximized by Kim Young-hoon of the previous cycle and organized into various profound realizations. I handed him the books, not as records but as scriptures. Now, with the Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts scripture, he will become so strong that I can't even dare to face him. After teaching him more literacy and language for about a month, I went on to earn a living by slaughtering bandit groups and unorthodox sects near Changho City and capturing wanted criminals. Once Young-hoon had learned all the characters, he spent about 4 months training crazily while looking at the 6 volumes of Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts scripture, his expression half-dazed. 4 months passed like this. Young-hoon Hyung, I've earned some money. I returned home with a bounty from capturing a famous late-stage master bandit near Changho City. But Kim Young-hoon was not at home. What? Did he go out? He had been reading the scripture and training martial arts as if possessed, but today he was nowhere to be found in the house. It seems like he has left the house entirely. That's when it happened. Swoosh. Suddenly, Kim Young-hoon appeared out of thin air like a ghost. What the? Haha, I tried using one of the techniques written in the scripture, and you really couldn't find me. This book is indeed an incredible martial arts text. Young-hoon Hyung, that's? I asked him with a trembling voice. This strange technique was one that Kim Young-hoon of previous cycles only managed to use after reaching the absolute of martial arts. But now, the current Kim Young-hoon, who had not even been training for a year, was using it. It's one of the techniques written in Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts scripture. Normally, it would be much easier to use upon reaching 5 energies converging to the origin. But I've been focusing solely on this technique for the past few days. Even though I'm only in the realm of 3 flowers, I somehow managed to use this technique. Ah, so you haven't reached the 5 energies state yet? Ha ha ha. Do you think reaching the 5 energies is a joke? Just following the insights written in the scripture will take at least 5 years. By the way, this technique is really fearsome. Even you, a peak master, couldn't notice it. If I wanted, I could assassinate anyone. I was speechless at his talent and just stared at him for a moment. By the way, I'm planning to go out and gain real combat experience in the martial world. Will you come with me? The martial world, you say? After pondering for a moment, I shook my head. No, I'm fine, Young-hoon Hyung. Huh, what do you mean? I want to stabilize my realm a bit more. Well, that makes sense. You're still at the early pinnacle realm and can't even use the sword silk yet. Yes, it seems you'll have to go alone, Young-hoon Hyung. I said so, deciding to part ways with him for a while. The reason was just as I said. Being at the early stage of the pinnacle realm, I needed time to stabilize my skills. Following him and watching duels between great masters would be good, but it wasn't what I needed at the moment. At least until I reached the mid-stage of the pinnacle realm, training through trial and error and repetition was the answer. First, I need to get used to entering the vision of a peak master all day long. While Kim Young-hoon went out to challenge various sects, I practiced becoming accustomed to the vision of a peak master. My practice opponents were the unorthodox sect groups near Changho City. They were numerous, tenacious, and most importantly, it didn't matter if they were killed, making them perfect practice targets. The one in front is about to shoot a poison dart. There's one attacking with a spear from behind. There's someone trying to entangle my ankle with a whip from the diagonal right rear. Numerous red lines rushed towards me. I dodged all sorts of attacks from the approaching unorthodox sect members, annihilating them with minimal movement. When fighting unorthodox sect martial artists, I always blindfolded myself and plugged my ears before seeking them out. After all, I could kill all of them in the vision of a peak master without any senses. For about 3 years, I trained by capturing gangs of evil martial artists, bandits, and robbers near Changho City. Finally, I was able to enter the world of the pinnacle realm all day without feeling my brain burning. My brain had completely adapted to this world. I even learned how to maintain the vision of a peak master all day without using internal energy. After 3 years of practice fighting unorthodox sect martial artists, I finally succeeded in fully entering the world of a peak master. At the same time, my financial situation improved significantly with the bounties collected in Changho City, and my nickname Infinite Fighting Spirit started to spread again. There were even those who wanted to become my disciples or follow me as martial artists. Of course, this was nothing compared to Kim Young-hoon. Nearly 3 years. Kim Young-hoon received the title of the strongest blade in Yangnuo and ascended to the position of the #1 person in Yangnuo martial arts, the strongest in the martial world. It was a realm reached by someone who had only been practicing martial arts for 3 to 4 years. The number of Kim Young-hoon's followers, and those who wanted to become his disciples, was incomparably greater than mine. Probably by now. It was time for Kim Young-hoon to be hit with the Wulin Alliance leader illness. It was always the position that came with becoming the #1 person in the world. Sure enough, Kim Young-hoon came to me again and proposed the position of deputy leader of the Wulin Alliance. Of course, knowing the future of working like a cow, I flatly refused and made an appropriate excuse. Young-hoon Hyung, I'm now going to try entering the Imperial Court. What? The Imperial Court? Yes. The reason I'm refusing your offer is to help you from the position of an official by joining the Imperial Court. Please understand. Ah, younger brother Seo, I'm truly grateful. Of course, there was a different ulterior motive for my decision to join the Imperial Court. If I join the Imperial Court, I'll have more contact with the Cultivator clan. I was the chief strategist of the Wulin Alliance and the head of the intelligence organization Gyeonggak in my previous lives. According to the information I had learned at that time, the Imperial Court was more deeply entwined with the Cultivator clan than any other group in Yangnuo. There were even rumors that the Yangnuo Imperial family was a collateral branch of the Cultivator clan. I first applied to the Yongyuo military. The military gladly accepted my application as a famous peak master in the martial world, and I quickly gained recognition, rising to the position of a general. From that position, I applied to the Imperial Guard and passed without any problems. It was the result I achieved in 5 years after returning. Your mission is to secretly guard His Majesty the Emperor and protect him with your life. As a peak master, you should be able to do that much, right? Yes, I will keep that in mind. I joined the Shadow Guards, and after 4 months of training in stealth and listening techniques, was deployed to guard the Emperor. There, I discovered a surprising fact. The Emperor is a cultivator. Woong, I could see the red aura surrounding the Emperor, centered around his forehead. It's the cultivator's divine consciousness. The Emperor was originally a cultivator. This fact became even more certain after meeting several princes and princesses of the imperial family. The majority of the members of the imperial family were cultivators with divine consciousness. But it seems they're not high-ranking cultivators. They're all nowhere near that fox. They seem to be, at best, cultivators of the Kai refining level. I don't understand why I, a peak master, have to guard them. The Emperor's aura, casually revealed, was definitely not just first star of Kai refining. With that level of skill, the Emperor might be stronger than the entire Shadow Guards combined. Maybe the Shadow Guard exists because he's too lazy to deal with assassins himself. Unfortunately, the Emperor was the person in the imperial family most at risk of assassination. Almost every night, assassins came, and I had to fight them off every night. Is it good that I'm gaining real combat experience almost every day? Thus, I accumulated real combat experience as the Emperor's Guard, spending 5 years as a member of the Shadow Guard. Are you managing well as the Woolen Alliance leader? In a small secret room, I was playing Go with Kim Young-hoon and asked. As the Emperor's Guard, I was officially forbidden from meeting him, the Woolen Alliance leader, so we had to meet secretly like this. Isn't it a headache? Haha, it would have been less painful if you had joined me. You're about to become younger than me, aren't you? What's the problem? Haha, well, he smiled meaningfully in response to my question. It was about time for him to undergo rejuvenation. In fact, considering the timing, it was somewhat late. The 3 flowers are just around the corner for you. It seems your internal energy has improved remarkably. Congratulations. Haha, cutting down assassins beside the Emperor, how could my skills not improve? The assassins coming to kill the Emperor ranged from low peak masters to those at the realm of 3 flowers. Most of the time, the assassins were of a similar realm to mine, allowing me to freely engage in real battles with them. So you seem to be doing well as the Emperor's Guard? Don't even mention it. Every time I gauge the Emperor's skill, I feel a sense of doubt. Ha ha ha, the Emperor being a cultivator. That's really something, hardly seems worth guarding. Over the past few years, Kim Young-hoon had become aware of the existence of cultivators and seemed eager to face them. By the way, Young-hoon Hyung, what do you think of these cultivators? Normally, at this point, Kim Young-hoon would have been eager to find and confront them. However, the current Kim Young-hoon didn't seem to show such intentions. To my question, he drank from his cup and said, what to say? Of course I'd like to fight them. But, I haven't yet fully comprehended all 6 volumes of Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts Scripture, especially the final phrases written in it. The final phrases written in the scripture were the realizations that Kim Young-hoon had gained at the end of the previous life. The realizations written in the scripture are such that I can't even attempt confronting them before I've fully mastered it. That's why I plan to delve into those phrases and then seek out cultivators. By then, I should be able to step down from being the Woolen Alliance leader. I see. By the way, your skills seem to have improved a bit. Kim Young-hoon smiled and poured more liquor into his cup. He's infusing his internal energy into the liquor along with the alcohol. This man is unbelievable. I drew my sword from my waist. Let's see you handle this. Whoosh. He threw the liquor cup. Strangely, not a single drop of liquor spilled from the cup. It looked like a light liquor cup, but I gathered all my internal energy and focused on the cup. Over the past 5 years, having fought continuously, I successfully transitioned from the early stage to the mid-stage peak. If the early stage of the pinnacle realm was about seeing one line upon entering that world, from the mid-stage onwards, it became possible to see both red and blue lines simultaneously. Until now, I had to give up seeing the blue line in order to see the red line, and vice versa. However, as I further entered into the pinnacle realm, it became possible to see both the red and blue lines at the same time. Swish! With the vision of a peak master, I could see countless red lines extending from the cup. At the same time, the optimal paths I could take to counter it appeared as blue lines. Through this liquor cup, Kim Young-hoon was revealing his intent and engaging in dozens of exchanges with me. When I tried to strike with transcending peaks, the trajectory of the red lines changed vertically. When I tried to strike upwards with ascending vein, the red line's trajectory became elusive, changing erratically. And when I tried to create chaos with landscape painting, the red lines precisely targeted the gaps in my chaos and aimed for my weaknesses. In that instant, after a fight of exchanging blows with Kim Young-hoon, I managed to create a single path that penetrated his defense. Severing mountain swordsmanship, flowing ridge, Ziyang, although the sword tip collided with the liquor cup, a storm blew, shaking the room. Realizing the internal energy in the cup was dissolved by flowing ridge, I quickly sheathed my sword and stretched out my hand to catch the falling cup. Luckily, not a drop of liquor was spilled. Phew, should you be playing with food? What? Besides, you've improved significantly. The realm of sword silk is just around the corner. Sword silk. Sword energy compresses akin to a silk thread, the first step where the originally formless sword energy materializes. In his past life, Kim Young-hoon thought that, given my high understanding of sword energy, I would quickly reach the level of sword silk once I ascended to the pinnacle realm. He overestimated my talent. Even now, 10 years after my return, I have yet to realize the state of sword silk. Thankfully, after reaching the mid-stage of the pinnacle realm, I can see a glimmer of hope. It was fortunate that it wasn't as difficult as the transition from the late first rate to the pinnacle realm. Well, anyway, didn't I say I was on the verge of reaching the 5 energies state? Yes, you did. In fact, I am at a level where I can challenge the 5 energies realm at any time. However, if someone attacks me while I'm challenging the 5 energies realm, I would be helpless, so I need to call someone trustworthy to guard me. So you're asking me to guard you. Haha, yes. I went with Kim Young-hoon to his secluded training room. There's no one as trustworthy as someone from the same hometown. Of course. Let's get started. All right. Kim Young-hoon sat in the middle of the training room and began his deep meditation. A change began to occur in his energy. I entered the vision of peak masters and observed the red lines around him. I felt like it was something I needed to do. The red lines of peak masters usually connect their arms to their weapons. However, the red line between Kim Young-hoon's hand and his saber began to change. That is, dozens of branches extended from the red line. Simultaneously, his red line seemed to cover everything around him. If I were to enter that space, I felt like I would be sliced by Kim Young-hoon's attack immediately. Any peak master, unless insane, would not dare enter that space. No, that's not it. I noticed a familiar change and my pupils constricted. The red line covering all around Kim Young-hoon began to fill in the gaps. His surroundings gradually became a red domain. It looks like the divine consciousness of the cultivators. The red domain centered around the cultivators' foreheads. It looked just like their consciousness. Whoosh. Kim Young-hoon's domain became clear, with not a single gap remaining, when the form of the domain stabilized into a sphere about half a jang approx. 1.67 m in radius centered around his forehead. The energy around him seemed to be sucked in, forming a certain flow within his domains. These flows slowly merged, forming 5 spheres above his head. The phenomenon that occurs when transitioning to the 5 energies converging to the origin. I had never observed the transition to the 5 energies state so closely before. In fact, during my first 8 days, it was impossible to observe such subtle flows of energy. It was only after becoming a peak master, my ability to read others' energy dramatically improved, allowing me to observe this phenomenon. Ah, what a pity! I suddenly felt a sense of regret. If I had reached the realm of 3 flowers, I might have been able to see much more. For now, let's closely observe his current state. I intensely focused on the 5 spheres, the flow within them, the principle of how these 5 spheres revolve around each other. The principle behind the spheres floating above Kim Young-hoon's head. Although I didn't understand everything, these fragments of realization seemed enough to give me a sense of the sword silk. Then it happened. SSSR, the 5 spheres crumbled, transforming into 5-colored energy. The 5-colored energy entered Kim Young-hoon's nose and mouth, and his body began to change. Crack, creak. His body twisted. Kim Young-hoon's bones and flesh changed, and the wrinkles on his skin disappeared. Simultaneously, lush hair grew on his previously bald head. Creak, crack, whoosh. All the energy in the training room seemed to be sucked into him, and he half opened his eyes. I've safely reached the 5 origins converging to the origin. Congratulations. You've undergone rejuvenation. He looked younger than me, in his 20s. I had seen this scene in my past life, but this time I gained much from it. It's a pity for you. If you had reached 3 flowers, you could have seen much more. I was just thinking that. What can I do? It's my fault for having limited skills. But it must have been somewhat helpful, so think it over once you return. He seemed to like his now lush hair touching it. Suddenly, I asked him a question. You must have encountered 1 or 2 cultivators, right? Young-hoon Hyung? Yes. Right now to my eyes. The consciousness they possess and the domain you've formed seem very similar. Do you think there's a connection? After pondering for a moment, he spoke. It seems likely. Within this domain, I think I can fight equally with those Kai refining stage cultivators. Using the martial arts from the gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts scripture, I might even be able to fight against higher-level cultivators. Perhaps those who have reached the 5 energies state might share a similar field of vision with cultivators. I see. Through his answer, I could roughly imagine why those who have reached the 5 energies state in martial arts obtain the same kind of consciousness as cultivators. Obtaining the same consciousness as the cultivators, it might be possible to train like them. The world seen by the first rate is different from the peak realm. The world seen by the pinnacle realm and 3 flowers is also different. The world seen by 3 flowers gather at the summit, and the 5 energies converging to the origin is entirely different. The reason why those who have reached the 5 energies state can train in cultivators' techniques might be because they can see areas invisible to ordinary people. This experience will help when I reach the 5 energies realm in the future. After receiving some martial arts guidance from Kim Young-hoon that day and chatting for a bit, I returned to the Imperial Palace. I mulled over the situation he showed me when he ascended to the 5 energies and gathered my realizations. A few days passed. That day, too, I was guarding the Emperor's bedroom in the darkness. Someone approached from the darkness, writhing in the distance. It was an assassin again, a peak master. Judging by their energy, he had just reached the pinnacle realm. However, I didn't let my guard down. Although I was slightly stronger, the difference between the mid and early stages of the pinnacle realm was not as significant as between first rate and peak. Moreover, the opponent was a master of assassination, daring enough to attempt assassinating the Emperor. Swoosh. A red line appeared from the darkness and lunged at me, guarding the Emperor's bedroom. Clang! I deflected the dagger with my sword and threw a hidden weapon at the assassin's ankle. The assassin hastily dodged my hidden weapon and stabbed at me again with his dagger. Our exchanges intertwined. My blue line and his red line crossed in the air. Strange. I should be focused on the fight, yet I couldn't stop thinking about the situation when Kim Young-hoon ascended to 5 energies. At the same time, I began to ponder about sword energy. Sword energy indicates the beginning of achieving unification with the sword. In the mid-stage of the first rate, one manifests sword energy, and begins to reach the threshold of unification with the sword. In the late stage of the first rate, one achieves complete unification with the sword and can use proper sword energy. Why, in a life-or-death situation, am I thinking about sword energy and the image of Kim Young-hoon ascending to 5 energies? As one ascends to the pinnacle realm and constantly sees the optimal path, as long as you follow that path, sword energy never extinguishes. That's why Kim Young-hoon in my past life advised me to train to maintain sword energy all day long. My optimal path is ultimately the limit my swordsmanship points to. Sword energy is the extreme manifestation of my swordsmanship's characteristics through unification with the sword. Swordsmanship is sword energy. These were my feelings during my martial arts training. Wait, no, something's off. But suddenly, I felt something was wrong with my thinking. The assassins stabbed at me 3 times in a row, and I deflected their dagger with landscape painting before destabilizing their balance with the entering mountain. His red line stretched towards me, and then split. After stabbing, he will change his move. I blocked his intention with my blue line and engaged in a struggle. If swordsmanship is sword energy, then what's the significance of a martial artist? Couldn't cultivators just create moving puppets or zombies, teach them swordsmanship, and have them use sword energy? Why haven't I heard about inanimate objects using sword energy in my several lifetimes? Sword energy is not just swordsmanship. Then, what is sword energy? While exchanging blows with the assassin, his red line pierced through my blue line. His dagger aimed precisely at my forehead. Sword energy is... I remembered the scene when Kim Young-hoon entered 5 energies, a red domain forming around his forehead. Ah, that's it. Though sword energy is created by swordsmanship, at its core, it's ultimately about the human, the intent of the martial artist wielding the sword. Simultaneously, I fully understood the true nature of the red and blue lines I had seen. Not just the optimal path or the opponent's intention of attack. It's the intent of martial artists unfolding their martial arts. The direction of their intent realizing this, I felt a strange sensation in my hand holding the sword. As if veins were growing from the sword into my skin, entering my hand. Not just a simple unification with the sword, but a stickier, more profound unification. Instinctively, I pushed more intent into the sword, deepening the unification. Until now, I thought sword energy was the same as swordsmanship. But I realized that swordsmanship is completed together with the martial artist who unfolds it. Therefore, wherever the intent of the martial artist goes, even if it deviates from the swordsmanship, it will still be swordsmanship. Whoosh, I swung my sword wildly at the assassin. Before, if I deviated from the severing mountain swordsmanship, the power of my sword energy would significantly weaken. But now, even when I swing my sword randomly, the power of my sword energy doesn't decrease at all. No, this isn't the end. I knew that my recent realization was not just this. I continued to focus on sword energy. Until recently, to evolve sword energy, I had to momentarily strengthen the energy with techniques like Kai Mountain, Heart Heaven. It's different now. Continue to infuse the sword energy with intent. In the world of the peak, I saw my sword gradually enveloped in blue light. At some point, reaching a critical moment, my blue light-enveloped sword transformed into the blue thread of the pinnacle realm. In reality, I was holding a sword, but in the vision of peaks, I was holding a blue thread. Ah, this is sword silk, the proof of maturity in the mid-stage of the pinnacle realm. Keening in reality, my intangible sword energy became thin like a silk thread, subtly materializing. After about 10 years in the pinnacle realm, I reached the mid-peak stage and could freely use sword silk. Chapter 20, Peak Master 3. I looked at the sword silk I had awakened, the realm of sword silk, also known as sword aura. The materialization of sword aura was a realm every swordsman dreamed of. Of course, there was the overwhelmingly superior sword gang. But since Sword Gang was a realm only reachable by masters who had reached 3 flowers gather at the summit, it was half legendary in the martial world. The realm of Sword Aura, much more accessible than Sword Gang, was the object of envy for many. Seeing my sword aura, the assassins seemed daunted, their energy diminishing. I took advantage of this and engaged them again in combat. Blue and red lines crossed in the air. Our intents tested each other. The assassin's dagger lunged at me. Simultaneously, 5 red lines extended from the tip of their dagger. It meant that there could be at least 5 follow-up moves derived from this attack. However, I held sword silk. In the world of Peak Masters, my sword had transformed, resembling a thread. To the assassin's eyes, my sword must have appeared like a red thread. The transformation of sword energy into sword silk is not just about increased power. Swoosh. From the tip of the sword, now a blue thread, several blue threads extended, creating paths. There were far more than the paths I had created before. As I slightly twisted my wrist, adjusting the tip of the sword, the position of the blue threads moved in unison. The predetermined blue thread lines moved. Seeing this, the assassin's eyes widened in shock. Last time, when I fought with Kim Young-hoon, it was fortunate he had only recently reached 3 flowers, and that too by directly skipping over the pinnacle realm. If he had fought me in the same manner, I would have been defeated instantly. I could project far more paths, more freely. Though they seemed to fend off my sword for a while, eventually, the paths extending from my side were far more numerous, and they began to be pushed back as Tei tried to calculate my moves. Mountain Lord martial arts, pressing forward with the momentum of a mountain lord. Transcending peak step, starting again from the first move, continuously linking techniques to drain and kill the opponent. Clang, 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 clang. For a while our sword and dagger collided. The assassin seemed to fight to the end. However, having become much more skilled in handling sword, aura, and intent, I eventually defeated them in our struggle, allowing me to land a strike. Thud, my leg struck the assassin's waist. The assassin fell to the side, dropping the dagger, and their mask came off. Ho, a familiar face. The assassin was one of the recently appointed female attendants of the Emperor. Seeing the roughly 20-year-old's face, I marveled quietly. Such talent to be a peak master at that age. You could have reached 3 flowers gather at the summit if you had lived longer. My brother was more talented, but, because of the Emperor. Oh, are you trying to appeal to emotion? You are the infinite fighting monster, correct? You're making a mistake. People are dying because of the Emperor's orders. Swoosh. I didn't listen further and cut off the assassin's head. Sorry, but this position doesn't allow for much listening. I felt a slight regret for having to eliminate such talent, and with the help of others, cleaned up the scene. Despite the noise outside until a moment ago, the Emperor in the bedroom seemed not to stir. I heard that a cultivator had installed a soundproofing spell in the Emperor's bedroom for the light-sleeping Emperor. Thanks to that, the shadow guards could fight assassins without being reprimanded for the noise. Though, it seems the Emperor himself set up that spell, not a random cultivator. In fact, no one in the shadow guard was unaware that the Emperor was a cultivator. In the eyes of a peak master, the consciousness of a cultivator was visible. But everyone just silently guarded the Emperor as it was their given duty. However, were there always so many assassination attempts on the Emperor? Establishing a shadow guard like us was also a recent event. I heard that the frequency of sending assassins to the Emperor had also increased recently. As chief strategist of the Wulin Alliance and leader of an information organization in my past lives, I had never heard of such things. After all, the Imperial Court had no reason to advertise the increase in assassination attempts. Why have there been more recent assassination attempts on the Emperor? Yongyuo had been enjoying an unprecedented peace recently. Of course, the poor are still poor, but at least ordinary people weren't turning into bandits or anything of that sort. Considering the level of civilization akin to medieval China, that's quite decent. Moreover, in the state of Yongyuo, the nobles humbly bow and obey in front of the powerful royal authority of the cultivator clan, leading to a very strong centralized power. If there was an insane organization bold enough to attempt the assassination of the Emperor. Could it be the martial arts factions? given the poor relations between the government and certain martial arts factions. This was the only assumption I could make. But strangely, during my past lives as the chief strategist of the Wulin Alliance and leader of an intelligence group, I never heard of such incidents, if not the martial arts factions. Then who could be sending assassins so persistently and frequently to threaten the Emperor? Especially someone like the assassin just now, someone who knew my alias. Furthermore, their command of the Yongyuo's language was quite proficient. From this, I could infer that they were neither assassins from the neighboring countries of Byokra or Shengzi. They are people of Yongyuo. People from Yongyuo are sending assassins to kill the Emperor on a regular basis. Although I wanted to interrogate the assassins, they were to be executed immediately before they could say anything, as per the protocol. Well, I can slowly figure it out. By staying in the royal palace and gradually gaining the Emperor's trust, I would be able to gather the necessary information over time. I hid in the darkness again, organizing my thoughts. After guarding the Emperor for 10 years, I constantly guarded him and earned his trust. With that authority, I was able to learn information from various parts of the royal palace. Of course, I couldn't learn core information, but I was able to learn a lot that could only be known from the government offices. For example, in the 33rd year of Heian calendar, thanks to His Majesty the Emperor's grace, the number of orphans and beggars greatly decreased, eliminating the influx of bandits. Consequently, praises for His Majesty never ceased throughout Yongyuo. Census conducted by the government offices. The census was a matter directly related to taxation and was controlled only by the government offices. I couldn't properly access such information even with my status in past lives. Only now that I had become part of the Emperor's Guard, I was granted the authority to view the census records. Not only beggars, but also the number of poor peasants decreased. In my past lives, I never looked into the numbers of orphans, beggars, or poor peasants. However, upon seeing the census records in the royal palace, I realized something was amiss. How could the number of orphans, beggars, and poor peasants decrease like this? It wasn't simply about helping the poor and creating livelihoods for them. Many of these people simply disappeared, just vanished. Did they starve to death? But the numbers recorded in the ledgers were far too large for mass starvation. If such a large number had died of starvation, I would have known about it in my past lives. It's not starvation. They were simply erased. There were no records of bandit attacks either, and during my time leading the intelligence group, I had never heard of bandit gangs specifically targeting and killing the poor. If such cruel bandits were rampant, I would have known. I looked into a few more pieces of information and methodically compiled them with my past lives' knowledge. As a strategist in the Wulin Alliance, Kim Young-hoon and I eradicated the unorthodox factions throughout Yongyuo and established a just world. Furthermore, when I founded the intelligence organization, Gyeonggak, it was strangely easy to quickly defeat other dark intelligence organizations in secret battles. The common point in both lives was that, as life went on, it became easier to eradicate unorthodox factions. And towards the latter part of life, many factions, like the Hoying faction group that mass attacked MC when he challenged them to a spar, suddenly transformed from unorthodox factions to righteous ones. Unorthodox factions are fundamentally illegal organizations, like bandits and pirates. These factions often start with beggars, orphans, and poor peasants turning to robbery out of hunger. As bandit gangs and pirate groups gradually gather experience, power, and funds, they grow in size, sneak into cities, and start engaging in illegal activities, becoming proper unorthodox factions. Perhaps the ease of eradicating unorthodox factions in my past lives was because, if the content of this census is accurate, the new blood that would have been part of the unorthodox factions, the poor, suddenly disappeared, leading to reduced size of the factions and their subsequent suppression. If that's the case, where did all these erased poor people go? As I compiled the information, a foreboding feeling came over me. The Cultivator clan. This case seemed to be related to the Cultivator clan. the recent increase in assassination attempts on the Emperor, and the establishment of the Shadow Guard. It all seemed to have some connection with the disappearance of the poor people. A few years ago, like the assassin with the dagger I met, there were assassins who, due to their lack of proper education, spilled their guts before dying. Most of these assassins said the same thing before dying. Do you know how many commoners have died because of the Emperor? It was strange. The current Emperor, while not a sage king, was decent enough to rule the country. His reign did not worsen Yangyuo nor lead to numerous deaths. In a peaceful country like this, why would assassins say such things? The Cultivator clan. This is related to the Cultivator clan. The only thing I couldn't find out, even after digging this deep, was regarding the Cultivator clan. It seems I will have to leave the investigation beyond this point. To Kim Young-hoon. The retirement ceremony of Kim Young-hoon, the first Woolen Alliance leader, was held. He stepped down from the position of leader amidst the congratulations and regrets of many. Many lamented his retirement, but his eyes were full of refreshment. Naturally, as his stepping down from the position of Woolen Alliance leader meant he had fully understood the 6th volume of Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts scripture, especially the final realizations. Feeling refreshed, I see. I was waiting in Kim Young-hoon's room and asked him when I saw him. Wow, someone sneaked in, so I thought it was an assassin, but it was you. The Shadow Guard is becoming more and more like an assassin. Well, we're becoming more like those assassins we face. But now that you've retired from the Woolen Alliance, what will you do? You know, and still ask. Having fully understood the scriptures, I will now seek out the Cultivator clan to fight and gather combat experience. I will move beyond the 5 energies converging at the origin. Have you completely achieved the accomplishments written in the scripture? At my question, Kim Young-hoon shook his head and spoke. No, not yet. Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts scripture is not so much a martial art as it is a kind of martial arts system. You know, we don't call third-rate, second-rate, first-rate, peak as martial arts. They are the standards and stages of martial arts. The scripture describes the next stage after 5 energies. It tells you how to reach that next stage, what kind of training is correct at 5 energies stage, and so on. While I have understood all of the scripture, I haven't internalized it to move beyond 5 energies. From now on, I plan to fight against the Cultivator clan to gain combat experience and reach the beyond. I see. I nodded and then told him. Actually, working in the royal palace recently, I've noticed something very suspicious. I explained to him about the information and conclusions I had gathered. Hence, I believe the Cultivator clan behind the royal palace is using the royal family and government offices to kidnap or slaughter the poor. But since I am a member of the Shadow Guards, unless I apply for leave like this, it's difficult to leave the capital. Even if I do, I can't freely investigate the Cultivator clan. Therefore, I would like you, Young-hoon Hyung, to go and gather information regarding the Cultivator clan. That's definitely worth looking into. But even I honestly don't know where to find cultivators. Don't worry about that. I will provide you with the information. Having worked in the royal palace, I had learned the locations of several places where cultivators lived, which I did not know in my past lives. I'll give you the information, and I'd like you, Young-hoon Hyung, to go and extract information from them. All right, I'll do that. I'll go and see what they are up to. I decided to thoroughly unravel the schemes of the Cultivator clan through Kim Young-hoon. Recently, the number of assassins has decreased a bit. For nearly 10 years, assassins came almost incessantly, but recently their frequency has been gradually decreasing. Moreover, the skills of the assassins who came had greatly diminished from the peak level to about the first-rate. First-rate masters are now just practice targets for the new recruits. Well, thinking about it, it was impossible for the assassins' side to infinitely produce peak masters. As they kept sending them and getting killed, they would eventually run out of high-quality assassins to send. Having worked in the Shadow Guard for 15 years, my rank has risen, and I've been promoted to deputy leader. If the leader retires due to aging, I'm set to become the next leader. But if we keep getting only low-grade assassins like this, our shadow guard becomes redundant. That's when I noticed something stirring in the distance. An assassin. What level of mastery might this assassin have? If it's around first rate, the new recruits should handle it. Thinking so, I entered the world of peak martial artists to gauge the assassin's level of skill. A red glow filled the space, stable and circular. The round form of the assassin's consciousness was slowly approaching. Cultivator? These crazy? These madmen, seeing the decline in peak martial artists, directly sent a cultivator to assassinate. Suddenly, the entire secret shadow guard assembled in front of the Emperor's chamber, having recognized the domain of the cultivator. It's a cultivator. Everyone get ready. The leader of the secret shadow guard raised his halberd with a tense voice. Despite being called assassin, the cultivator's stealth techniques and perception methods were a mess by the standards of martial artists. Clearly, they had only roughly learned these techniques. However, I grew more tense seeing this. How did they infiltrate the imperial palace with such sloppy skills? They must be hiding something. Noticing us, the cultivator who was approaching stopped. Are you all peak martial artists? Annoying. Peak masters all seem immune to stealth techniques. Is it because of that irritating vision of theirs? Without a second thought of hiding, the cultivator dropped his invisibility and blatantly walked out. With your eyes, you should recognize I'm a cultivator. If you value your lives, get lost. No one reacted or responded to his words. Tusk, do you think you can take me on? Relying on numbers, you'll only meet a dog's death. One last warning, the limit of you peak martial artists is, at best, against a Kai refining first-star cultivator. I am a great second-star cultivator. The air around him stirred as he pulled out a talisman. Just as there's a significant difference between first-rate and peak, there's a huge gap between Kai refining first-star and second-star cultivators. If you don't leave now. We didn't let him talk further and quickly charged towards him. My thrown weapon hit an invisible barrier in front of the cultivator, indicating he was casting defensive spells. As peak martial artists attacked him, he scattered talismans into the air, which transformed into bright white flying daggers heading towards us. You fools. I have several talismans to support my assassination today. When the cultivator scattered several talismans, a strong repulsion was felt. The leader and I, excluding the others, cut through the repulsion with our energy-infused weapons and held our ground, while the rest were thrown back. Are you the strongest of the pack? Again, the cultivator took out a talisman. Flames appeared above his hand. If it hits, it'll turn us to ash. I couldn't ignore my survival instincts and retreated, escaping the cultivator's area of influence. I couldn't predict his attacks from within his domain, as it was impossible to read his intent due to the overlapping red color. Conversely, if I retreat too far, I'd be at a disadvantage against a cultivator adept at long-range attacks. He's forcing a fight that's advantageous to him. The compatibility between martial artists and cultivators is extremely bad. The fireball hit a pillar behind me but didn't spread much and was quickly extinguished, indicating the cultivator didn't want the situation to escalate. I signaled a few of the faster members of the Shadow Guard to escape the cultivator's vicinity and call for reinforcements. Where do you think you're going? You can't escape. A dark shadow burst out as the cultivator waved another glowing talisman, forming a barrier that enclosed us. Even sound will not escape this barrier. After I kill all of you, I'll take care of the Mackley clan's branch family. The cultivator took out dozens of talismans. Damn it, what a shit situation. If it weren't for the talismans he brought, we might have been able to kill him with a combined attack from the leader and me. But with those talismans, he was demonstrating far more power than his actual skill level. If only I had reached the 3 flowers stage. With the strength of 3 flowers, I could shatter the cultivator's defensive spells and split him in 2, but I was only at the mid-peak and hadn't yet grasped the 3 flowers. But maybe. Leader, I have a plan. What is it? Create a moment for me to approach the cultivator. Just one single moment. I'll try to inflict a fatal wound on the cultivator. I'll trust you. The leader nodded and charged at the cultivator with his halberd, creating an opportunity for me. I took poison from a bottle at my waist and applied it to my sword. If I can break through his defense and graze him with this sword, we would win. I joined the attack on the cultivator. The cultivator scattered talismans in the air, which turned into bright white flying daggers aimed at us. I rushed towards the cultivator. The white daggers targeted my forehead. The leader's halberd spun and deflected the daggers aimed at me. The cultivator then hurled a fire spell at me. A recruit, a dual sword user, crossed his swords and sent energy to intercept the fire spell, altering its course. I was now within 3 yards of the cultivator. Entering the cultivator's domain now, I couldn't guarantee my life inside there. I couldn't see his intent due to the red surroundings. HMPH. Intense wind blew, pushing me away. Using the initial forms of severing mountain swordsmanship, I cut through the wind's weak points and entered the cultivator's area of consciousness. I couldn't see the enemy's intent. Then, my last life's experience, maximizing all senses like spatial form, hearing, touch, and smell, helped me indirectly calculate the enemy's attacks, left and right. I felt vibrations in the air on both sides. Something was coming. Leader, go now. Capture him. One of the guards tackled the spell on the right while the leader shattered the one on the left with his halberd. And front, I sensed a change directly in front. The temperature and humidity were different in the cultivator's domain. White ice materialized in the air, forming an arrow. Severing mountain swordsmanship, entering mountain. I quickly switched to a lower stance to narrowly avoid it, then launched an attack. But right in front of me was the cultivator's defensive spell. As expected, even as I launched a surprise attack, the cultivator looked bored. Absolute leisure. I'll wipe that languid expression off your face. I smirked, infusing different moves into my attack. Severing mountain swordsmanship, Kai Mountain, Heaven Sky. The flow of the sword silk quickened and strengthened. My entire body's energy pathways momentarily opened, further amplifying the sword silk. And then, I'll squeeze out all the energy in my body. Focusing on the energy pathways, I drained all my energy into my sword. The absurd energy of yellow bamboo roots of hundreds of years infused into my sword. The sword silk evolved in an instant. Flash, sword gang for a brief moment, less than a second, the light on my sword pierced through the cultivator's defensive spell like tofu. Translator notes. Can this be considered a cliffhanger?